What up, though, One Pride? This is the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, a podcast where One Pride goes worldwide. My name is Anthony Fitzpatrick. I'm joined this evening by Ryan McCluskey, which can mean only one thing. It is time for your weekly dose of college knowledge. Yes, it is the College Football Podcast. O-H-N-O. Oh no. Ryan. Week 14 of the season is gone. The regular season is done. Teams are firing head coaches. The transfer portal is going into full swing. We've got championship week coming up. We've got the playoff committee's first ever 12 playoff decision coming. This is going to be an incredibly interesting time in the world of college football going forward. But we've got the big ones to look forward to now. Who is going to be the champion?
Yep, this is the culmination. All season has come down to this, and yeah, we've got we've got 12 spots. We've got roughly 15, 16 true contenders. We're going to lose at least half of them this weekend, and yeah, like I say, all the players that have got sour grapes that have not had playing time this year, have not been happy how their seasons have gone. They're hitting the portal already, so there is yeah, Twitter is very busy right now trying to keep on top of it. A lot of big time, but there has been some I'd consider big portal hits so far. Like I say, a small handful and the rest a minority. But yeah, like I say, it's also head coaches. Like I say, a lot of coordinators right now getting lined up to get the big gigs.
Yeah, a lot of teams making changes. The ones who have not made bowl games, certainly it's all up for them. The ones with bowl games are getting going, but for a select few, there's still a lot to play for. So today we are going to be taking a look at the first round of the FCS playoffs, which happened this week. They've already gotten underway there. Then we're going to take a look back at week 14, the games that happened, the permutations, how the conferences finished. And then we're going to take a look ahead at Championship Week. There are 9 games. We're going to see who's in them, how mine and Ryan's predictions at the beginning of the season stacked up against them, and predict who's gonna win them. Let's just quickly get all the housekeeping stuff out the way first. The Royal Lines UK Discord, if you want in for that, just let us know. We'll fire you across a link for it. Main podcast was yesterday because we're on a short week in the NFL. We did our Green Bay Packers preview yesterday, so go check that out if you haven't already. Don't forget to like and sub to everything, Twitch, YouTube, all that good stuff. Don't forget we're a part of Lions Nation Unite as well. Herman Moore's forum he has created for a whole host of Detroit Lions content creators to come together with you, the fans, to talk everything Lions. We're an affiliate on Twitch, monetized on YouTube. We've got a tip jar, all that good stuff. So if you want to help us that way, great. But first and foremost, we just love having you all in the building, chatting ball with us and with a feedback form as well. So fill that in if you feel the need to do so. Brent DeWitt is in the building there. Grandize is in the building. Mile Marker is in the building. Um, did I say transfer portal? Yeah, it is the portal. What did I say? I might have said something different, but I hope you're all doing well. Brent is certainly doing well, as am I, because I predicted the result he mentioned this weekend. It's the first game we're going to talk about going there, so hope you're all well. If you've got any questions, as always, just let us know. We will answer them as the night goes on, and I'll dive down into Twitch soon. So if you're in Twitch and you're chatting, bear with. I will be in shortly. As I say, there are an absolute ton of moves going on at the moment as it pertains to head coaches, the portals, and that. So we're going to save a show for that. We will do a show dedicated to the head coaching changes to the portal because it'll take us forever. Otherwise, it'll be like 2 hours before we even get through to the reviews. So we're going to dive down straight into the bits today, and we're just going to take a little look back at the playoffs. Playoffs have started in the FCS. Last week, Ryan filled in his bracket and tried to predict what was going to
Started
go on
poorly already.
here. You went 5 of 8, so I
I
don't
called
think
one
that's
big
too
upset.
bad.
I
You
got one big
called
upset.
one massive upset. You got let down by what was probably an even bigger upset, and then you had two predicted upsets which didn't quite come off. But I think 5 of 8 is a solid start, so you've done all right there. But it's as you mentioned. There was one very particular big upset this week, right? You called it, and I mean, big upset, even bigger margin of victory.
Yep. I said the Skyhawks, like I say, would cause a big upset. They've scored heavily. They've been one of the more prominent offensive teams of the year. And like I say, going into on the road to a ranked team as well. Like I say, against the UNH, pulled off the big win. Like I say, 31-point win. Like I say, and despite like I say their rankings, obviously they were equal in stature. Like I say, one was 8-3, one was 7-4. So their rankings were pretty much. But yeah, even I didn't think it'd be that like I say that big a gap of a margin. But like I say, the Skyhawks reward is it's a chance to take down the number one team in the country. Like I say, so they've got everything to play for. Like I say, they've got a totally free hit, and it will be the Bobcats, like I say, that'll be the one that's, like I say, slightly looking over their shoulder. Would hate to see probably one of the biggest upsets the country happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like you said, it's free hit. You have got nothing to worry about going in there. In terms of the other games, you called right. Tarleton State took down Drake. We had Rhode Island very narrowly take down Central Connecticut State.
Yeah, I was very surprised by that. That
That
was
was a
disappointing.
4 point margin of victory. What was it, 21-17? Like Central Connecticut State have not won a game forever in the playoffs. Villanova took down Eastern Kentucky, and then Montana took down a spirited Tennessee State team. The ones you didn't call. The biggest one of them all, right? The Richmond Spiders, who you had
Yeah,
going
they
to the
fell to the new
quarterfinals.
fell to the new Patriot League champions.
Lehigh, what do you make of that?
Quite surprised. Like I say, Richmond paid the price for it as well. I've seen a couple of players hit the portal. Now their season's come to an end already. But yeah, I'm very surprised. Like I say, Richmond have been one of the more consistent teams all year. And the Patriot Leagues, well, they're a small conference. Their teams usually don't make waves in the playoffs. So fair play to them. Like I say, that is a fantastic result for them. And then I suppose I look at the game they've got next. Idaho, very winnable. Like I say, it's a game that they go there and they expect to compete with them, with the Vandals.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So a few big wins in here. So for Lehigh, that was their first playoff win since 2011. So 13 years in the making. So they've taken down ranked opposition. And then you have a few of the other big ones. So we mentioned last week about Tarleton State and Abilene Christian, who were one of the teams who thwarted you in
Yeah.
this. But this is their first ever time in the FCS
I didn't see them getting a
playoffs.
shutout as well. That's very impressive.
Yeah, Tarleton's their first ever wins in the FCS playoffs for Tarleton State and Abilene Christian at the first time of asking, but 24-0 wins over Northern Arizona. Tarleton State, you've got going quite far. Oh, well, you hadn't going to the next round, sorry, but there's some surprise in there. Illinois State came across SEMO. You predicted SEMO to win that. That was the third one that got you, but they
Yeah.
say this brings up a very interesting mix of teams for the second round. So let's just go through the second round fixtures that we've got going into this one just to see how this lies up. So there's 8 games left, 16 teams. You've now got number 10 Rhode Island heading to number 7 the Mercer Bears, their highest ever rank, one of their highest ever rankings. First time they've won a championship in 92 years. They come out into this one. You've got the big one, the Montana Grizz away at the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. You've got Villanova away at Incarnate Word. UT Martin, as you mentioned, the big upsetters. They get a free shot at number 1 Montana State on the road. Abilene Christian on the road to North Dakota State. Tarleton State on the road to South Dakota. Illinois State on the road to UC Davis. They're the 5 seed, their highest seed in program history. And then you got Lehigh, the unranked team. Oh, the only 2 of them left on the road to Idaho. I mean, there's some big fixtures there, right? You eyeing up any upsets there this week because there's some big ones potentially.
See, I look at Tarleton State and I think they can go toe to toe with South Dakota.
Mm.
I can see them being really competitive. I see Villanova keeping it fairly tight as well against Incarnate Word. Montana, no, I reckon Montana get dusted. Jackrabbits by at least 3 scores. The Grizz have been bad against all good teams this year. Abilene Christian, I'll be surprised if they score more than 10 points on NDSU. That feels like a 20, 30 plus point win. It's the Mercer Rhode Island game that I don't know a lot about. Like I say, the Mercer Bears were the first team to book their place, win the conference. Rhode Island, I suppose, limped past the Blue Devils, so don't go into that game with full of confidence. But Mercer's cold. Like I say, that one, I suppose it wouldn't be that big of an upset, really. So yeah, like I say, I could see Rhode Island knocking off Mercer. I could see Tarleton State, like I say, getting within a score of South Dakota. I look at this. Lehigh, I think, will put up a valiant fight against the Vandals. I reckon they can keep that close.
So we're saying no more unranked teams left in it after this week then. Lehigh and
No.
UT Martin
UT
both
Martin will be
down.
plucky, but, well, they'll have their feathers plucked by the Bobcats.
All right then. So that is how the state of the FCS looks at the minute. Then we'll be getting into the quarterfinals next week. So we will return and see what happens this week. Now all the big seeds are involved and some of the serious upsets can happen. Um, and we'll move it on now, and we'll dive straight down into the week 14 review because we have a lot to go through. Obviously, everything has been decided, assembled going into championship week, and we're going to start in the Big Ten because, as again, you get into the title of the show, we're going to talk about your game first, and the Big Ten going into week 14, Oregon had been decided as the team who were going, even though the Big Ten didn't know it for a few days, Oregon were assured a championship shot, and there were 3 teams who could have joined them: the Ohio State Buckeyes, the Penn State Nittany Lions, and the Indiana Hoosiers, the long shots in this. And of course, Ohio State were playing in the game against Michigan in what was one of the most ugly affairs I've seen in a very long time. One of the worst quarterback matchups I've seen in some time in this fixture as well. This was very it's tough watching to start this. Did not start, very fast at all. Michigan punted to start this one off. Took 4.5 minutes off the clock. Ohio State got the first points of the day. They had a 4.5 minute drive of their own. They went 9 plays, 58 yards. Michigan then turned it over on downs. They had an 11 play, 72-yard drive, which was stopped at the Ohio State 3-yard line. It was, in fairness, it was a really good defensive stand from Ohio State. Stopped them at the 3 by literally a matter of inches. Then Will Howard, and what a day he had, threw one of the worst picks you will ever see in your life. Right after they're able to make that stop, he throws it to Michigan corner Amir Hall. He's trying to find his receiver on the outside, and Hall just jumps through. It's just no thing in it. It's a terrible throw. He returns it to the 3-yard line, and Khalil Mullings is able to drive it over to give Michigan a 7-3 lead. The only touchdown they're going to score on the day. And then this thing continues to just get ugly for Ohio State. They, on the responding drive, they go 10 plays, 55 yards, take over 5 minutes off the clock, and their kicker decided to have a really bad day. Cameron Fielding, he shanked his field goal from 38 yards to the right. I mean, this thing never even looked like it was going to go, and it started outside, drifted even further wide to turn the ball over to Michigan, who then there were 2 punts with 6 yards of offense from both teams. Michigan get a good return on the Ohio State punt, but their drive goes 4 plays and 3 yards. But thankfully for them, they do have a good kicker. Dominic Zavada nailed it from 54 yards. The guy's been clutch all year, the Arkansas State transfer, to be able to take the lead up to 10-3. If before we go there, Ohio State respond with their only touchdown drive of the game. They're able to get it all the way down the field. Will Howard finds Jeremiah Smith in the Buckeyes red in the Michigan end zone. There's a hint of OPI in there, but he kind of does nail the player a bit as well. He's just completely on his own. It's just before the half, levels it up 10-all at the half. Starting in the third quarter, the only 3 points in the entire second half of this one. Ohio State have a decent drive. They have to punt it. Michigan punt it straight back. But then Ohio State have a second really good drive of the half, and Will Howard throws an even worse pick than the one he does before, right in the red zone again. He's trying to find Emeka Ibuka. Picked off by Makari Page. He throws it behind his receiver. Page is just able to slightly jump the route, and again, a really good drive is absolutely killed. But then Michigan give it right back. Davis Warren, and this is some of the ugliest play you've ever seen in your life. He throws a pick right back to them on Michigan's own 17. He throws it right to Caleb Downs. It's about 4 yards in front of his receiver. He's not under a great deal of pressure either. And Ohio State get it at the Michigan 17. Then it starts getting really ugly for them. Michigan hold without giving up a single yard, and Ohio State run it on the third down play. The Ohio State fans boo this thing mercilessly. They are not happy at all. And then to add insult to injury, fielding the kicker then misses from 34 yards. He misses from 34 and 38. He shanks it to the left-hand side of the posts this time. I mean, if there was a God out there for Michigan on this day, he certainly was working for them. To add insult to injury, Michigan then take 9 minutes off the clock on the drive after that missed field goal. But then they get all the way down to the Ohio State 3 yard line. I think it's Colston Loveland leaks out the backfield. He goes for a pass in the end zone. Davis Warren completely underthrows it straight to Jack Sawyer, the Ohio State linebacker. Another turnover on in the end zone. It comes out to the 20. But Ohio State go 3-and-out with 7 minutes left, and then the big drive comes. Michigan finally able to put together some semblance of offense. A 5.5 minute drive to completely bleed the clock down, including a run on 3rd and 6 from Khalil Mullings. He is hit by two Ohio State defensive linemen at the line of scrimmage on a 3rd and 6. He's hit by a third as he tries to leak out to try and get some yards on it. He shakes them all off, runs it 27 yards. Absolutely back-breaking blow there for Ohio State to get it down into their red zone. Ohio State then get pinged for an illegal substitution. They have 12 men on the field, which gives Michigan a 1st-and-goal from the 5. But not only that, it means Ohio State have to burn all their timeouts, and Michigan they're able to get the clock all the way down to 45 seconds. And then Zavada kicks it over, chip shot goal for him, really. Make it 13-10. And then Will Howard, they've got to pass the ball. They've no timeouts. They've got to go the whole length of the field. He gets one completed pass for 1 yard, 3 incompletions. Ohio State turn the ball over on downs. Michigan win the game. They take Ohio State out of the Big Ten championship game, potentially out of the playoffs, maybe not, but they're going to put it in a bit of serious jeopardy. And Michigan kneel this game out, and not only that, afterwards they go and plant the flag in the middle of the field, and for the first time all day, Ohio State decide that they're going to come out and be big men and try and fight. A massive scrap breaks out in the middle. Michigan's players get pepper sprayed by the police. All sorts goes on afterwards. This is what rivalry week is about, Ryan. These rivalries are deep. They're full of hate, especially this one. It's one of the most fierce in the country, but for the last few years, we've pegged Ohio State as frauds who can't go all the way, who are not an elite team because they don't have the backbone. And you're at home, you've got one of the most expensive rosters in all of college football, and your rival, Michigan's quarterback, goes 9 of 16 for 62 yards and 2 interceptions. And you still lose at home. Once again, Ryan Day's team collapses the second it's put under a little ounce of pressure. For Michigan, this is massive because they now firmly control this rivalry going forward with all the reinforcements they've got coming in the summer.
Yep. I've got to congratulate Michigan on implementing their anti-football plan and bringing Ohio State down to their level. That was the only way they're going to win this game, is to make it horrendous to watch. Like I say, this Michigan team, it's bad. Compared to recent teams in recent years, it's terrible. The offense has stunk for most of the year, but they knew that if they could get Ohio State where they wanted them, if they could slow down their run game, which they did, they held them to very minimal games, and then put Will Howard under pressure in bad spots, that they'd have a chance and that their defense would eventually be able to get home and cause them just enough havoc plays, make enough of its nuisance to get out there. And then couple that with what is a horrendous special teams performance that will live long in the memory of Ohio State fans. And I don't think that kid's very popular on campus going into next season. It was a perfect storm. Like I say, it's one of those where you see all the flaws of Ohio State. You question, is Will Howard better than Kyle McCord? Have they upgraded? So these questions now start to come back. Like, why is it that, like I said, Davis Warren can have another stinker of a day, but like I say, they can't do enough the defensive line to hold them to minimal gains on running plays? Why do they bend and eventually creak late in the game and the floodgates kind of open for those long, long drives? Even if they don't end in touchdowns or scores, just bleeds. Like I say, it's like death by a thousand cuts. And yeah, ends Ohio State's title ups. They're still going to make the playoffs. I have no doubt about that. So Michigan won the battle. Have they won the war? I suppose we'll find that out next year. Like I say, they can hold the bragging rights right now. But yeah, Ryan Day, the days have to be numbered. Whenever it matters most, whenever the lights seem brightest or there's most to play for, it feels like his Buckeyes teams they just don't deliver. And when you go through different rosters, different quarterbacks, different coordinators, and he's the same common denominator, when do you pull the plug? Unless they get to the national championship final, I feel like Ryan Day has to be fired. I feel like that's the only way he keeps his job. He's getting to a championship.
They have the talent. They've never had the backbone. That is why I've predicted Michigan to win this thing for the last 4 years. They just don't have what it takes. And you think back to the two losses this year. Remember the Oregon game? How did they lose that? Will Howard on that scramble, running out of time, not realizing his clock management. All they needed was that field goal to be able to win that. It's a brain fart. And then in this one, like you say, kicker misses twice. Will Howard makes some incredibly bad throws in the red zone. They just don't execute properly. They just don't have the stomach in them. Like this is recurring, right? This is on coaching. For me, he's got to go. Like that 40-1 record against unranked teams in the Big Ten or whatever it is he's got. Like,
Meaningless.
like please, your best win's Penn State, and with due respect to Penn State because they're in it. I don't think that's really a signature win.
We just saw a coach fired last week that was like 41-20. Like
Yeah,
I said, but in conference play, he was bad.
yeah.
And like I said, end of day, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Like I said, good, really good overall record at Ole Miss if you look at the record. But in the big games, in the SEC games, the games that matters, record bad. James
Mm,
Franklin, when it matters, record bad. There's only
mm.
so long that these overall records are enough to save you from the chop.
They
And it feels
are.
like they're running out. It feels like he's running out of time.
And what's even more damning here, you think everyone says that Ohio State D-line is the best in the country. No sacks in this game. Do you know how many quarterback pressures Michigan gave up in this one? Three. Three hurries, no quarterback hits, no sacks, no tackles for loss against the run. And you're like, wow, they really got bullied in the trenches. In Michigan, on the flip side, still no sacks, but 23 pressures on the quarterback, forcing him to throw, make mistakes, which is what he did. And, once again, 170 yards on the ground for Michigan, just 70 for Ohio State. It's that trench warfare, right? Right. That is the difference between these two teams, and this shows trenches are better than flashy players, flashy playmakers, right?
Yep. In games, in close scoring games, the ability to manage the clock and have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 minute drives are down to run game. Your passing game can't do that. The passing game isn't going to be sufficient enough to execute that long drive unless you're getting big plays and penalties. But a run game, like I say, it means Ohio State burns timeouts. Like I say, you go through timeouts quickly. The run game, lack of discipline at certain downs as well, cost them as well, where they'd have to burn out further timeouts. So, yeah. But this is what Michigan, this is the Michigan blueprint, isn't it, for years? Let's be honest,
Hmm.
like ground and pound,
Bully ball.
control, trying to keep discipline in between the whistles anyway. That's kind of been their bread and butter. And for as good as JJ McCarthy was, the run game was still a catalyst that led to a national title.
Oh
He was
yeah.
just a guy that just didn't put the ball in harm's way and played good complementary football.
No.
And whoever's under center next year, Michigan will still start with the same style of football next year.
Of course they
Even though,
will.
like I say, they've now made some coaching changes. The ethos, the brand won't change. Like I say, you will still have multiple physical back systems, and they want to be a run first team to set up the pass.
Yeah, exactly. And
And
you
Ohio
know,
State thought they could do that by throwing loads of money at the likes of Quinshad Judkins, and it that for me has been it's been a disaster.
yeah, I mean, you
Biggest
look at
pickup of
it.
last year's portal for me, and it's not reaped the rewards at all.
12 carries for 46 yards, 3.8 per carry. Travion Henderson,
He would have
10
been better
carries,
off staying at
21
Ole Miss.
yards. Yeah, probably might have taken them to an SEC championship
Yeah,
because
if
in
they'd
those
had the Quinshad
games,
Judkins they had, like I say, they probably don't lose to like Kentucky.
no, they don't. For Michigan, I mean, it's all about Kalel Mullings. He was only getting 3.6 yards per carry, but he got 120 and he got the decisive touchdown at the end of the day. Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith, 35 yards and a touchdown. Like they just completely nullified everything. You've got to give kudos to the Michigan defense, right? It kept
Yeah,
Ohio State down to 4.46 yards per play, which is 15th percentile. Explosive play rate for them, which is usually high, was just 5%, which is 15th percentile. They were 33% on third downs. They were 21% in the red zone, which is 17th percentile. I mean, and then you've got the two picks in there as well at critical times. Like this Michigan defense has never, I don't think that's been questioned this much this year. It's the offense that stunk, but
no,
all-time
their
performance
defense for
from
me has
those
been
guys.
stellar all year at times.
And Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham had a wonderful day. The amount of times they were putting pressure on the quarterback and forcing him out his pocket and getting him out of rhythm, tremendous. So Michigan, really well done, and thank you because I predicted you to win this, even though
I'm
you were
glad the
three-score
season's ending, but
underdogs.
they're ending with the bragging rights,
Of
and
course.
they now
And
look to the future.
And this is what rivalry week is all about. People just go, oh yeah, Ohio State are going to win. The three touchdown favorites. Put it all aside. Put all the form aside. This is rivalry week, and this trumps everything. I mean, you kind of saw Ohio State afterwards. Jack's. Did you see Jack Sawyer's reaction? That was
Yeah.
funny. Not going to let them plant the flag in my field again. Well, they just did. So get
Both
used
got
to
fined $100,000 as well, like I say, so they
it.
also then made an example of them.
Yeah, they did. I thought it was hilarious. Ohio State choosing to fight after the game instead of fighting in the game. It epitomizes what Ryan Day's about. He's all mouth and no substance, and so is his team. So well done, Michigan, for that. But of course, that knocked Ohio State out the running for the title game, and there were two other contenders for this one. And, in fairness, Indiana kind of blew their chance last week when they lost to Ohio State, but they finished the season really well. They absolutely leathered Purdue 66 to nothing. Like this was, if there was going to be any slither of them getting in the playoffs, which they still might. We don't know yet, but they still might. They've given themselves the best chance possible. They're 11-1 finishing on the year. Kurt Rourke threw for 6 touchdown passes. Elijah Sarrett had himself a day and a half. They got a ton of sacks. They got a pick as well on that one. I mean, whatever happens, right? Kurt Signetti's got a new contract there. 11-1 at Indiana. And did you see that? I watched this. Like the place was bouncing. I've watched Indiana games before when their stadium has looked like, the five guys sat with their dog there chugging beers and there's no one in there. This place was rocking. It was electric. He seems to have really reinvigorated the program. And no matter what happens, they can be really proud of themselves this year, even though the schedule, yada yada, still got to win them and they have beaten everything in their path bar Ohio State, and they should be proud of that.
Oh yeah, like I say, they've set themselves up for potential long-term future. Next couple of years, like I say, they got the fan base back on side, whereas Hughes' fans in recent years have probably felt probably quite disconnected from the football program. Like I say, some of them probably just stopped going. They just found better things to do on a Saturday afternoon. But yeah, they'll bring the crowds back in. It'll help their boost their NIL collective. Their recruitment will also take a big boost from this, watching the team succeed. So yeah, it'll work wonders for them on and off the field. And like I say, next year, hope to go one better.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to start showing that you can get with the upper teams in there now, but that means, of course, that by against all odds and expectations, my pick to win the Big Ten this year, the Penn State Nittany Lions are the ones who are going to be going on to face Oregon in the championship game, and they did so with an absolute dismantling of the Maryland Terrapins. I mean, Drew Aller didn't really have to do a great deal in this. Nick Singleton had a couple of rushing touchdowns. Bo Prabula, the backup quarterback, came in, had one. Aller had a rushing touchdown. Like, this was pretty much a non-contest from the word go. I mean, Maryland did get a touchdown early on, but Penn State put down 28 points in the second quarter. Maryland did not score a point after that touchdown drive they had in the first quarter. And I mean, Tyler Warren's in the form of his life. They had 6 sacks, 2 of them from their star on the edge, Abdul Carter, who finally looks like he's getting there. The secondary got 3 picks on the day. I mean, they've still not shaken off the fraud accusations themselves, right? But now they've got a chance to go do something big and win the Big Ten and really assert themselves in the playoff race. This feels, I know I said that the Ohio State game was Franklin's do or die moment, but this now feels like it's it. If you're gonna do it, you've got to go and win the whole thing. But they dismantled a poor Maryland team. They did what they needed to, and they've given themselves a shot now.
Yep, they've got a shot to like say go do the one thing no one else has been able to do, stop the Ducks. And if they do, Penn State beat Oregon. Would they be the new number one team in the country? I think they'd have to be. I think they'd enter the playoff seedings with the number one going to the bye. I said, yeah, it's all in their hands. Like I said, being undefeated, all the pressure is really on Oregon. Like I said, Dan Lanning, people are trying to turn his head. There's rumors of NFL jobs. Dylan Gabriel's trying to win a Heisman. There's a lot of things going on there. Yeah, Penn State, is it? It wasn't always in their own hands. Like you said, they did need a bit of help and they got it, so they can find themselves very lucky for that. So, yeah, this is the James Franklin moment. This is where he has the chance to, like say, prove me and all the doubters wrong in recent years that when you do get these opportunities to, like say, go to the biggest games, that you can take them with both hands. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's gonna be a very interesting game.
Yeah, absolutely. Missed a few comments. Just going to dive right there. Free climb goes crying. Ryan Day should get an extension. I mean, yeah, that'd be funny. He should. Plant that flag goes go blue. Love that name. Given what's going on there. Brent goes, I'm old. No, you're not, Erin. You're only as old as you feel, Brent. And I know one thing for sure. Number one job requirement for head coach at Ohio State University is beat Michigan. Yes, it is. And Ryan Day has never beaten Michigan. Did he get one win
I think
before?
he's
No, I
got
don't think he's.
one.
He might have one, but it's not for a long time now. 4 in a row. The clock goes up on the days since Ohio State beat Michigan counter on Twitter, which always makes me laugh. Brent goes, kudos to the Hoosiers. Great season. Had them going 500 or a little over. Totally wrong again. Brent, you're not on your own there, mate. I don't think anybody saw Indiana going the way they did this year, but that's all part of the greatness of this. You can turn a college football program around quickly if you do so wish and you do it the right way. In terms of other games, that went on. Oh, it's a shame mile markers just had to go, but Minnesota ending the season with a very dominant 24-7 win away at Wisconsin. And, we just, for Minnesota, this has been a good year, right? Right? I mean, I know they started off slow. They finished 7-5. They're going to go to a nice bowl game, but Max Brosmer has really blossomed into a great talent. Darius Taylor, they've got a great running back. They've got a really good defense that, is capable of winning games for them. They've set themselves a foundation as well this year. They've got to build on it now. And I don't know what's going to happen with Max Brosman. I think he's got more eligibility left, but they're one team who you would feel positive going about into next year. They seem to have found the groove. They just need to start hotter next time.
Yeah, they've got some potential corner pieces. Like I say, they've got best true freshman defender in the country, Coy Perich. Like I say, they've got a lot of good defensive backs, their linebackers. They've got a strong run game. Like I say, that by a collective that can all take it. It's all going to be like say Max. Well, if he does hit the Senior Bowl, which like I say, one of the bowl games, there's reports like I say he could be gone. Like I say, how badly does that set them back if they're suddenly trying to find uh, a new quarterback, which I expect they will be. I I don't know. Do they go down the same model again? Do they go find the ultra experienced guy maybe with 1 year left, or do they try bleed blood someone else in for the long term? It's going to be difficult. Like I say, got a big decision to make. As if their quarterback of future is not already on roster, then what do they do? So yeah, they've put themselves in a good position. The team around him. It's now about narrowing down. The work starts now. Like I say, look at the portal. A lot of quarterbacks in the portal that Minnesota should be going after. And I think, like I say, they probably have a good chance at landing some of them. So they're going to have to hit and start grinding hard and maybe have to put their hands in their pockets. But if they get the right guy, start better next year, then 8, 9+ wins is very achievable.
Oh, absolutely. I think the future looks bright for the Golden Gophers, and they should be proud of what they've done this year. They've started off, they've taken an FCS quarterback and they've turned him into a really good group of a power foul guy in 1 year. They've been patient and it's paid off for them. In terms of the rest of the Big Ten, sorry, slate, Iowa beat Nebraska in a 13-10 thriller, which could only be like the end of Iowa's season, that something like that happens. Oregon absolutely smashed Washington 49-21. Illinois beat Northwestern 38-28. Rutgers twonked Michigan State 41-14. El Reverso there. UCLA had a non-con fixture. They beat Fresno State 20-13. But the one we want to talk about quickly to end this, number five, Notre Dame, away in the Coliseum against USC in one of the biggest rivalry games there for the Shillelagh. And I mean, Notre Dame stomped them 49-35. And you think 14 points, maybe was it a little bit close? Notre Dame were ahead in this one for a very good portion of this, for pretty much the entire game. USC were really always playing from behind. They traded a load of touchdowns to start with. They got to 21-21 together. Then Notre Dame put down two consecutive touchdowns. Um, USC got one back to take it 35-28, but then Jaden Maeva got pick sixed twice. Christian Gray had a 99-yard return touchdown, and Xavier Watts, the star safety, had a 100-yard return for a touchdown. They were able to get a touchdown back right at the very end, but with like 13 seconds left, it was done and dusted by this point, and talked about it all season, right? Lincoln Riley has surely got to be on a hot seat at this point. He benched Miller Moss, who's now in the transfer portal. They bought in Maeva from UNLV, who started the end of the season. He's done fine, great, but you can kind of see his roughness here. They finished 6-6 in their first year in the Big Ten, which is just not what a program like them should be doing. And to end it all, getting blown out by your big rivals and barely scraping it to make a bowl game. If he's not fired this year, you would say he's probably one of the hottest coaches under the sun going into next year, right?
Well, I've seen reports they might not need to fire him. He could be leaving. I
Pushed
mean,
before he's shoved.
yeah. I'm one of the people I always think you should go before you push. It always looks better on the resume, even though everyone knows it's not true. But yeah, between yesterday and today, they've lost so many four-star guys. The flips have hit them hard. Like I said, three, four, five-star guys have looked at Trojan and said, "Nope, won't be going there now," because of the uncertainty around head coach and also just yeah, terrible start to a Big Ten that really was there to be had, wasn't it? Like I said, they really should have gone in there and started competing. It's very disappointing by them not taken to life like they thought they would or they've expected to. Maybe I think probably came in a bit too big for their boots, didn't they? Probably thought they were going to cakewalk some of them sides, so it's egg on the face. And
Yeah.
yeah, Fighting Irish, like I say, going into the playoffs with tons of momentum.
Yeah, they're
Really a side
coming.
you probably would not want to face right now.
They're coming off my fraud. They've been on the fraud list for a long time. There is a legitimacy about them right now, right? Jeremiah Love
They are
seems to
scoring.
have
Like I said,
got.
you just have to look at like say how many points they are scoring right now.
Yeah, and they're running like Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love. They're like 210 yards between them on 25 carries. Like that O line is tremendous. Obviously, they had to, replace the left tackle right before the eve of the season because he was out for the entire year. So that didn't help, but they're an offensive line factor. Let's say they had to slip up against NIU in week two, but since then, they say they may be all the form team in the country right now behind Oregon, and I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
play them in the playoffs, quite frankly.
Nope, I won't either. Not with their run game, their defense. Marcus Freeman, he has saved himself. Like you
Mm.
say, he has really turned it around when a lot of people were thinking it might have been a mistake to hire him in recent years. But yeah, he's got a chance now to bit of a free hit really in the playoffs. Yeah, like I say, they're probably apart from like say the first round, but they're gonna have go out there and they're gonna have a chance to cause some potential big upsets. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they do. But yeah, world is their oyster really, and yeah, they've got every reason to believe they could beat anyone put in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed. Before we finish the Big Ten stuff, Brent just quickly forgot to ask each of your opinions on Day's stubbornness to prove a point, not soft that he couldn't do, cost him the game. Just my thoughts. I think Ryan Day's stubborn. I do. I just don't think he's willing to compromise. I just don't think he's a good leader. Like you see all the rah-rah stuff, and he's like Dan Campbell. Yeah, like no, he's not like Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell does rah-rah and backs it up. Ryan Day does rah-rah, and it just feels like empty words. But he never changes the way he plays, right? And that's cost him 3 years. Or I do think he is stubborn. I think it'll cost him his job. Do you think the same?
Yeah, he's got plan A. There's no plan B. The plan A is let's go get the biggest names in the country. Let's flex our checkbooks and let's expect the coordinators to put them together and make sure it clicks. But when it doesn't click and when one of the weak link breaks, like there really is no plan B for him. And then it don't help like say that when you expect him to come out and say something or expect him to take a bit of responsibility, goes into a shell. You very hear him take much responsibility for anything that ever goes wrong.
What was his excuse this year? It was windy, right? Like he was blaming the kicks on the wind, I think. Like someone did this wonderful compilation of him making excuses after every loss. Pretty sure he said it was windy this year. Like, come on, man.
I mean, but
The guy, your
that affects
kickers,
both kickers, doesn't it? You both go
yeah,
both ways.
your kickers missed two from within 38, and Dominic Zavada nailed a 54-yarder. By the way, one of the best portal additions all season for Michigan, the kicker. He's going to put himself in NFL contention the way he's been playing. I think
The
he's
standard of
due this
kicking right
year.
now is so bad as well.
Yeah,
It's perfect time for him.
I think he's due this year. So like that was a
He'll
great
be a
move for
Jake
Zavada
Moody.
to
He
do
could be a
that.
fourth, fifth round pick.
He did
Teams
indeed.
teams
Yeah.
these days are pretty desperate to take a punt on a kicker.
I mean, if you got like 7 day 3 picks, why not? Why not get your special team? You still get 3 or 4 other guys, and half of them aren't going to make your roster, so kickers will. Right, let's move it on and let's get into the really fun one because this has produced an outcome which has, going to put us to at odds going into this next week. And the fun one all year, the Big 12. And we said it was going to be one of the more fun conferences, and absolutely this thing was. We came into this with a four-way tie for who could go to the championship game. There was Ryan's Arizona State Sun Devils. There was the Dion's Colorado Buffaloes, the Bectacles, and the Bectacles, they could do it as well. And then we had BYU on the two-game losing streak who could potentially get in. But it was basically winning in for Arizona State and Iowa State. And Colorado and BYU were relying on results going elsewhere. Well, Colorado held up their end of the bargain. They absolutely twatted Oklahoma State 52 to zip after I'm pretty sure we both very foolishly said that Oklahoma State could beat them because of the run game. Yeah, just how wrong we were there. Arizona State. Right. I mean, what a juggernaut that is. The Territorial Cup. They have not won it for 3 years in a row, and Arizona, one of those teams that can be dangerous on their day. But your three playmakers, yes, you've got three of them. Your quarterback, your running back, and your star wide receiver, who sadly is not going to be available this week, but still 49 to 7 victors over Arizona to finish 10 and 2 on the year in a season that I think has just about exceeded every single Sun Devils fans' expectations. I mean, what a hell of a season it's been. The Scatman, 3 touchdowns, Sam Levitt, 3 touchdown passes. Tyson was averaging about like 30 yards a catch for his 140 yards. I mean, what a win for them in the Territorial Cup. No upset here, and they never looked like been an upset here.
No, it wasn't even close. Like I say, Arizona gave up pretty quickly. They waved the white flag, and that was quite sad to see. Like I say, they surrendered the Territorial Cup. They rolled over and showed their bellies pretty quickly. And yeah, it was a team defeated. Like I say, Fafita's hit the portal. He's jumped ship. It seems like there've been something wrong all season. It's kind of just been the Tutorial McMillan show all year. Just like you say, whether we win or lose, just look for him. And like you say, a lot of their big players just went missing. It feels like a lot of them have checked out mid-season, and they were just limping to the end of the year. And they had the chance to do the funniest thing ever, and they never even looked capable. They didn't even look that bothered. Like I say, the defense was soft. ASU had their way with them. Yep, paid the ultimate price. I believe it's undisclosed, but I believe he may have broken his shoulder or shattered his collarbone,
Ooh.
Tyson. He's done for about probably 4 or 5 months. It's surgery, everything. So if he had any chance to, he could have. I think he could have declared as a junior, but I'm pretty sure now he'll be back, whether he's a Sun Devil or not. I can't say right now. Like I say, I'd like to think what's happened, he'll stay. Like I said, but could at the portal, but yeah, absolutely, that's disaster for this week. It really is. But yeah, like I say, Scatterbo, he is a really strong contender for a top 6, 7 Heisman voting finish. When you look at someone integral to how their team has been and that has really just proved all the doubters wrong, he deserves every credit for that. And yeah, Sam, I've seen the Spartans fans absolutely furious that they've seen the best of Sam Levitt and he was just allowed to leave for free. And now he looks like he's got an incredibly bright future. Maybe even as a pro, like say next 2 years time, he could have a really strong draft pull. If he can back this up with another year, like saying Marcus Arroyo, he's been named on the I've forgotten the name of the award for the assistant coordinator.
For the best coordinator in the country,
Yep,
which
he's been nominated for that award. Kenny Dillingham will no doubt also be nominated for head coach of the year. But yeah, if you told that Sun Devils fans you're going to have 3 dreadful years and then you're going to have one of the best years potentially in program history, you take those. You take the bad all the time. You know, got a good. But yeah,
of course you do.
yeah, and then yeah, it's been really interesting this weekend. Like, I mean, I'll say it now. I don't think they can compete when they can't win on the outside with Tyson. I now I don't think they'll win. They don't
So
have they don't have the depth.
So, why this is going to cause consternation here is because obviously Arizona State are Ryan's team, but there's a team in the Big 12 who I predicted, and I'm so happy with this that they were going to get there, but they're going to be facing off against the Bectacles. The Iowa State Cyclones were able to put away Kansas State. I watched this start to finish because I am that invested in this team now. And Ryan did mention last week that like the Kansas State run game will be the one that could kill them here. And yes, Avery Johnson and DJ Giddens were running at 7 and 5 yards per carry, respectively. Avery Johnson
He's a
actually
bad
had.
passing quarterback in. I've realised that now. I
He,
don't trust him.
Yeah, he was 12 of 28 for 220 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had a few big busted plays in there. Rocco Becht, I mean, he didn't have his best day. He was 13 of 36. He was barely throwing at 30%. 135 yards and 2 touchdown passes for him. Another for Jaden Higgins, who continues his remarkable run of form at this minute. Jalen Noel, the other star wide receiver out there, had a touchdown catch. And key here, right? Two turnovers, fumbles. Now, Kansas State had about 100 yards more offense, 386 to 291. And yes, they were able to run the ball, get some big chunk plays, but we talk about the Iowa State defense. That's the difference maker here. As much as I love Becton, the offense, the defense is what it's all built on. Those two turnovers, critical. Like this was the hardest game for a team in the championship picture this weekend. And Iowa State were tested, but all year they've been tested. And I think now they deserve the right to say that they are a good team. Like they are a good all-round team. They've got a good defense, a good offense. The special teams is good enough. Like it's well balanced, and more importantly, we talk about this with Ohio State. Under Matt Campbell, they've got heart
Well
because it didn't
coached, yeah.
always go their way. But despite it all, despite being under a ton of pressure, they ground out the win because that is a team that believe in themselves and have heart, even when they're not playing at the best.
Yeah, very well coached team. Matt Campbell's very well respected. Like you say, he's had rumblings. He's crossed paths with NFL draft cycles in the past and decided it wasn't for him or he just didn't get the offers. I think the time has probably passed now. I don't see it coming around again, but like I say, I think this is a very good match for him. Like you say, he's got a quarterback now that he thinks he can stick around for a couple of years. He can trust, he can help build him into something which can help the program. He's got strong veteran leaders on sides of the ball, like I say, receivers, Bo Freuler, who's kind of like the quarterback of the defense, the safety. Like I say, a lot of these guys are seniors as well. A lot of these guys I've just named will be moving on, but they're leaving behind a strong legacy of a team, like I say, that is very competitive. And yeah, they ground out a really hard fought win by winning in the trenches, winning in turnover battle, getting the key stops and when it matters, and also difficult conditions. I'd say it wasn't a good day to play.
No.
Wet, it was windy, it was slippery, so it was really difficult. And yeah, they were playing a very dangerous team on its day. So yeah, they had it. They didn't have all their things their own way, and it came down to who had the more heart and more heart desire to win. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting game.
It is. And I think it could be one of the more fun championship games. We'll come back onto it later and give our thoughts on that. But great for them two teams. Like no one expected them to be there. And I got one of my two wild card predictions right for this division. The other one, West Virginia, got absolutely blown out by Texas Tech 52-15 to end their season. They need to go back to the drawing board, given that Wyatt Milam and Garrett Green are probably both going to go to the
Do you know who
NFL
wants
this
their
year.
job as well? I saw on Twitter Anthony Becht, Rocco's dad.
Oh, really?
He's the Seattle St. Louis
Yeah.
Battlehawks coach. He used to play for them, and a lot like he quote tweeted it with eyes. I think he wants to get back into the game.
Oh, that'd be
Interesting hire.
sweet.
It won't be if he
Oh,
wants to take Rocco. If his dad whispering in his son's ears.
you know what? Don't I like the
Yeah.
Mountaineers.
I
I'll,
could
I'll
see
take
them
that.
hiring Anthony Becht, though, like I say, because AJ McCarron's just, like I say, stepped away. The bat he
Mm.
might decide to return to the Battlehawks, but that'd be could be a good hire if they do
Mm.
go that route. Very experienced coach, but yeah, bad season, terrible season for the Mountaineers.
Oh God, yeah, that's it's not been their best one. You know, they will wonder what
It's a
had have
rebuild now, and
been.
like you say, you don't know what's gonna happen with Green as well. Yeah, I won't be
Yeah.
surprised if he hit the portal.
Yeah. He's had a lot of injuries as well, so they're probably going to want to try and find someone who's a little bit healthier as well, unless he can stay healthy for the entire offseason. But yeah, that shoulder injury when they were unbeaten in conference play just absolutely rattled him. I think it was against Kansas State. That's when it all came apart. BYU, unfortunate for them, they did end the season with a win 30-18, but they had it in their hands and they just weren't there yet. They were like Arizona State, fancied to not do anything this year. They lost to Arizona State. They lost the two games in a row. It's a shame, but I would, they're going to rue this, right? They should probably have got there. But when you sit back
Yeah.
and look at it, this has still been a very good season for them against expectations. If Sataki can continue to keep them this competitive, I mean, they finished 10 and 2. Like the 10 and 2 double-digit win team, man, and they'll get a really good bowl game out of that. You know, they would have taken this at the start of the year, but not in the manner that it happened.
No, if you'd have told them how they got there, they wouldn't have wanted it. If they said, like, say, with 3 weeks going in the season, you're unbeaten, you've got a couple of fingers in the title game, and then you're going to blow it, and you had
Mm.
chances to beat Arizona State because you had multiple chances to beat them through a horrendous interception when they should have just drove down the field and scored and won. Like I said, they would absolutely be like they'd be distraught. But yeah, 10 and 2, it's a good team. Like I say, they always recruit really well. They've got really strong ties with, like say, Samoans, the Pacifics, Hawaiians. Like say, BYU does a really good job. It knows its market, and they recruit some of the best kids that a lot of schools don't even look at, and it's worked well for them for years. Good experienced head coach. They'll bounce back. It's just how much of this team they can now keep together. I don't know about what's going to happen with Rhett, Slav, and guys like that. They're older guys. They're going to have to
Mm.
reload again.
Yeah, absolutely. Indeed, they are. But yeah, it's good season. You've got to give that to them there. In terms of the other games that went on, Utah finished with a win 28-14 over UCF.
Two
Baylor,
teams that are a mess.
yeah, two teams are a big miss.
Two
Baylor
teams, like I say,
beat,
I expect Kyle Whittingham to step down. I expect him to
yeah,
resign.
yeah. I think you're right there. And UCF need a new head coach because Gus
Yeah.
Malzahn's going to Florida State.
And
So
UCF have reached out to Lincoln Riley, according to on3.com, which is absolutely bizarre.
it is, but maybe they know he's looking for a way out. He's going to get pushed, so getting on him early. But that would suit UCF football to the ground. They'll score 50 points a game and give up 60 points a game. That's what they'll do under Riley. So Baylor blew out Kansas 45-17. Texas Tech already said their result. TCU finished 20-13 winners over Cincinnati. And you have a little look at the Big Ten. So outside, four teams finished 7 and 2. Arizona State, Iowa State, BYU, and Colorado in conference. You had three teams finish 6 and 3. You had Texas Tech, you had Baylor, you had TCU. They all finished 8 and 4 on the season. I mean, you think of the Baylor Bears, TCU, Texas Tech. There's three teams who now have a foundation to build on for next year because Baylor struggled a little bit. TCU have not been the same since the playoff run. They've bounced back. Like the Big 12 is setting up very nicely next year. Again, has been a team that has been a conference that can be really full of depth. Because you look at all the teams at the bottom and you think some of them have got to rebound. Like it could be even more competitive next year.
Yeah, I expect it to be. I expect next year to have it'll be one of those conferences where they send everyone could be bowl eligible. It's not crazy to think next year that everyone could get to 6 wins. Like I say, because a lot of the teams this year, records look bad. You watch their games and you watch the highlights and you realize like Kansas, like not a bad team.
Yeah.
Knight's not a bad team. Some of them poorly coached, but then you look at teams like say Texas Tech where they just fired the defensive coordinator. Well, everyone knows why because they could give up 30, 40, 50 points a game, but they could score whenever they wanted. Dominant offense. Like I say, one of the best quarterbacks in the whole country, one of the best receivers in TCU. Dominant offense when it wanted to be. Just one side of the ball consistently lets a lot of them sides down. And then, like I say, look at Baylor, got a young quarterback in Sawyer Robertson, and they've got a really young running back in Summit Prendergast. Like I say, I think
Yeah.
he's like a freshman or sophomore, so they've got weapons. So yeah, I expect next year it to be even more competitive. That's why the two teams in the championship game, you've got to win it this year because next year it could all suddenly unravel and suddenly you're a bottom feeder. That's quickly how things could change in the Big 12.
And who had the bottom four teams? Four teams had two wins or less in conference. Utah, UCF, Arizona, and Oklahoma State. Who had that in their bingo cards? They were four of the top six, I think, preseason predictors. Just goes to show, doesn't it? Don't listen to the preseason media. They don't know a thing. So yeah, Big 12 has been so fun, and we're looking forward to that championship game this week. We'll move it across into the SEC now, and there was only one spot to decide here. So the Georgia Bulldogs were already in, but let's talk about this one moment because the Georgia Bulldogs had their rivalry game against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, who have they've had the weirdest of seasons. They started off with the big win over Florida State, then they had tons of bad losses, then they took down NC State, then they took down did they take down Clemson as well? And then they come in to play Georgia, ranked number five in the country, who 9-2 at this point. The game goes to eight overtimes. 44-42. Georgia sneak away with the. I mean, this would have just sent shockwaves all over. This could really have put even winning the SEC, their playoff participation in doubt if they'd have lost this one. Right, and just an incredibly plucky Georgia Tech team. Haynes King had the game of his life. He was 26 of 36 for 303 yards and two touchdowns in the air. He was 24 carries for 110 yards and three touchdowns on the ground. So five touchdowns for him on the day, all purpose. They were able to sack Beck multiple times in there. Now, Beck had a good day. He threw five touchdown passes. Georgia couldn't really run the football. They had to rely on passing in this one, and they had to rely on the defense as well, making a few stops. But, this is just one of those, you've got to put your hands together and clap. It's just a tremendous game, and Georgia Tech nearly causing the shock of all shocks there and takes eight overtimes to settle it. And Georgia will be feeling the effects of that one the day after.
Yeah, not what you want right at the end of the season before a play. You don't want to get dragged into an all-out, like say, Royal Rumble brawl. Frustrating for Tech. Had a lot of opportunities to win that game. Really should have felt they probably should have closed it out. Like say, in the game, like say for large parts of the game, they were better. Their defense, like say, through the air, it got shredded. Like say, Carson Beck just was like a hot knife through butter. The tight ends, like say Jurasek and Delp, once again, kind of teamed up to say we'll put it on their back, we'll help him out. Like say, uh, an alarming lack of run game again from the Bulldogs. How many times have we said that this year? Whether they've won or lost, running the ball really does seem like a chore from a lot of the time. And then yeah, if Georgia Tech can just keep Jamal Haynes and keep Haynes King together and keep them healthy, they've got a chance every week, every other week at least, of causing big upsets. They really are quite an interesting offense. They really are a difficult team for anyone to come up against because they're plucky, like I say, but also the dual threat of Haynes King is just, it's really difficult for defensive coordinators to handle at the best of times here. Tech, 7-5, but really it could have been a much more in clutch moments in different times of games all season. They dropped wins that they should have had, and they'll think about what if the Bulldogs will just breathe a sigh of relief.
They put down 600 yards of offense, 261 rushing yards, 303 passing yards. Like, Georgia only got 400. As you mentioned, they just don't look. They're finding ways to win games, but they just don't look the same, Georgia, this year. And, this was a good game for Beck. This is one where he could say, look, I saved us because the run game sure as hell didn't. But yeah, there could have been an absolute shocker. So Georgia, by the hair of their chinny chin chin, keep their playoff hopes. They're pretty much in the playoffs now. Even if they
Yeah,
lose the
I'd say
championship
they're
game,
pretty much
they'll
guaranteed.
still go. But this was very, very close. But what was not very close was the game to decide who was going to play them. And, we were made to look a little bit foolish on this one because we went into this and it was a battle of the old Texas teams, Texas and Texas A&M at College Station at Texas A&M. And you're thinking with the injuries that Texas have had, especially in the running back room, they've had issues. Texas A&M look good. oh, I feel like Texas are going to be able to win this one. They're going to be able to get something out of it. No, Texas absolutely steamrolled them, and that has been polite. So, Texas 561 yards of offense compared to Texas A&M's 248 yards. They had 250 yards on the ground. Quintravian Wisner had 190 yards on the day at 5.6 yards per carry. They could just not stop him. Marcel Reed did very little at the quarterback position for A&M. They couldn't run the football. I mean, Ryan, this was Texas came into their rivals' patch, stomped them completely and utterly. The only point Texas A&M got came off a turnover. It was a pick six. Will Lee had a 93-yard touchdown return with about 5 minutes left in the third quarter, but you've got a chance to go to the SEC title game. You're at home, you've got your rivals on your patch, and you don't score a single offensive point in the entire game, and you are just effectively kept at arm's length with very little danger posed to your opponent. I mean, this will still go down as a better year, like year one for Mike Elko. It will go down as a above average. Like they're a three-loss team, yeah, but they've surpassed expectations probably to what people thought you'd do in year one. But this was just embarrassing in front of your own fans to be absolutely railroaded like that. I mean, fair play to Texas, wonderful game, but it just wasn't even close.
Weird one, because like I say, Texas, especially when it came to like I say efficiency and red zone, they were absolutely useless as well. All that yardage, naff all to show for it. 17 points, like I say, with what they mustered up on offense is laughable. Like I say, the Longhorns were not good for in big areas of the game. But if they wanted to march up and down the field constantly, they found ways to do it. And then when it came down to actually trying to put pay dirt and get across the end zone, kind of it's a bit shambolic. They kind of fell apart. So yeah, they were really there for the taking. That's what should frustrate A&M fans the most. That the fact is their defense all day bent, but it didn't really break. But their offense mustered nothing. Like I said, time after time, their defense would give them a chance. It would get the ball back and say, go on, go make it a game, then make it competitive. And it laid an egg. Like I say, Marcel Reed, very, yeah, inefficient through the air. On the ground was okay, but got absolutely no help whatsoever. Like I say, that as a collective unit rushing the ball, they were anemic. And they just did not give themselves a chance at all. And then they played right into the Longhorns' defense hands that, yeah, smothered them. Could have pitched a tent in the backfield, made life really difficult. And in the end, yeah, you probably could have played a couple more quarters. I don't think A&M score an offensive touchdown. I think that's just how the day was going to pan out in the end. And in the end, yeah, Texas, they just wore them down with a war of attrition. And yeah, only 17-7, but Longhorns should be very happy with that. Like I say, a good day's work, despite the minimal scoreline. They kept an A&M team that can be dangerous. They shut them down and kept them in check. And that is the kind of result you do want going into the playoffs,
It
where your
is.
defense is dominant.
I think they said like 80,000 people turned out for it wasn't midnight yell, it was a day yell, but like that's what you want to do as a rival, right? Your rival's getting a bit of momentum. A&M fans felt like for the first time in forever they really began to believe they could do it. And to just go in there and stomp them and crush that optimism, like that's just a perfect day's work, right? You go in there and now A&M fans realize like, oh well, you're never going to get this good an opportunity again. Alabama not going to lose three, LSU not going to lose five or whatever it is. You're going to have a much harder
Prime opportunity
schedule.
that, like you say, to win the
Yeah,
SEC, and they've let it
yeah,
slip through their fingers.
to their main rivals. Like it cannot be understated how big a win this is for Texas, just in terms of stomping the morale of their biggest rival. But we'll come and talk to it later. But I don't know who's going to win next week. I don't. I think it's just I think it's a straight shootout. You could call this right down the middle at the moment. So, well done to Texas there on their victory. In terms of other games that went on, the Egg Bowl Ole Miss did not finish this season well, right? They won 26-14, but Miss State have been, for want of a better word, garbage all season. They've not been good at all, but they went toe to toe with them for the vast majority of this game. They were able to put a few scores down. It weren't until near the end when Ole Miss were able to finally establish a little bit of a gap between the two. But Miss State gave them a good fight, and Ole Miss, this is not. They're 9-3 on the year. They're 5-3 in the SEC. That just doesn't feel good enough with the amount of money Lane Kiffin has spent on transfers this year, with the amount of players he's gonna lose. All mismatched them pretty much in offensive yardage. They lost the turnover battle, which ultimately lost them this game. But this was a very spirited performance. Van Buren, he didn't look too bad as a quarterback for Miss State, and Ole Miss have got a big decision to make now going forward because this has been a real disappointment of a season for them. But
Yeah.
they didn't look good in the Egg Bowl.
I can't think of many more teams that have been. You've got to look back at the end of the season and think what could have been disappointment. It's the Rebels. Like I say, they pick up a huge statement program changing win and then go in absolute egg. And then they just fizzle out, yeah. And like I say, they limped past a pathetic Bulldogs. I mean, compared to recent teams, like I say, this is a terrible mistake team compared to recent years. Yeah, it's young and it's inexperienced, but it was flat out bad for a lot of the year. And yeah, Ole Miss, they win the Egg Bowl, but really, they've got nothing to cheer about, have they? Like I said, they'll lose decommits. Some of their best talent is about to leave. They've got a head coach that, oh God, someone take his Twitter off him. Jesus, change his password. Like I say, he don't help. I love him, but he don't help himself. I like to say that he just looks really petulant. He spent last week arguing about why they should make the playoffs, why other shouldn't teams shouldn't.
Oh, I
Because
saw that
yeah,
thing. It's
you just weren't good this year. Like you say, it's too late to make a case because your team couldn't do it on the field. So you're now taking to social media to try fight their corner for them. And yeah, it's a little bit embarrassing. Like I say, it's a little bit cringe. And I'm very disappointed in it. My opinion of Jackson Dart has been super high. It's gone down that to being low again. Is it a guy? Isn't it a guy? What's going to happen to their defense? Like I say, I've just got way more questions I do about answers than I did before the start of the season. Are they closer? Are they further away? I honestly don't know. And yeah,
feels like
let
another
themselves
lost
down this
season,
year.
right? Like Tamu. This feels like a lost season. Like I said, with the big program defining win, this was
Yeah.
the year to do it.
If they miss out on the expanded playoffs, it's a travesty.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it.
You should be considering his position. Like, I know he's recruiting well and that, but you got to get wins.
Yeah.
Recruiting is not all it's
I
meant to
don't
be.
think they've got the bollocks to fire him, and there's not a chance his ego would walk away.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you there. So yeah, bad season for Old Miss, and they shouldn't make the. My view is no three-loss team should make the playoffs unless they've lost their championship game. And my other view is no team should get into the playoffs at the expense of a team who's lost the championship game. Looking at you, Ohio State, when they did it a couple of years ago. If you don't get to a championship game, you should not be able to advance your position any further. That is just my view. Teams should not be penalised for reaching championship games at all. But we'll see about that one. In terms of the rest of the SEC, Tennessee beat Vanderbilt 36-23, but I mean Vanderbilt went 17-7 up in this. They will be a little disappointed with how the season has ended, right? But like the first play of this game was a 100-yard touchdown return for them. They've really shaken off the label of being the whipping boys of the SEC now. If they can carry on doing what they're doing, they're going to get a lot more respect very quickly, and they will still look back on this season. You've had wins over Auburn, you've had wins over Kentucky, you've had the big win over Alabama. You pushed Texas very close. You lost by a score to LSU. This has still been a very good season for them, and for a little bit, Tennessee were worried about this one, and they really had to fight hard to put them away there. They are a doormat no more.
Yeah. Like I say, ignore the record. The record doesn't really matter to their fans. They're not interested in 6-6. Like they won't be defined by wins and losses. The program has taken a huge step this year on and off the field to being a more respectable, a more competitive, and a more attractive option and prospect in the SEC to recruits out of high school and players in the portal. And that's all the fans wanted. And they've achieved that in 1 year. And next year, next year I put pressure on them. Next year I
Mm.
have a little bit of expectation. If next year they go 4-8, I'll be mad at them, and rightly so, because now they've shown me they're capable of competing with teams. So now, with with good performances becomes expectation. Let's see how next year, where they're favoured in some games, how they react. So next year will be the real benchmark where we compare this team to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big questions answered, like I said, because like I said, they're about to lose some big players. It looks
Mm.
like Diego could be gone. Like I said, their tight end, some
Eli
of their players are hitting the
Stowers has
pot. Stowers,
gone.
yeah. How do they respond to that? And yeah, how attractive as a brand are they right now? In
Exactly.
the portal, who could they go get?
I'm
Could they
good.
go get Thomas Castellanos? Could they
Yeah.
throw their name in the hat for Connor Weigman?
Oh, I'd like that. Now that you've
Yeah.
mentioned that, I would love that
It's
for
going to take
him.
money, but I doubt that. I don't believe they don't have the money.
No, and when the stadium's finally renovated, you'd hope the increased facilities will be
Yeah,
attractive and stuff like that, and they'll
yeah.
put some effort
I
in.
need them to go out there, and I know I need to see them be aggressive and flex their muscles.
Mm.
Don't just
Yeah.
wait for them to come for them. Go get them.
That is one of the early draft stories I'm going to watch with Taysom Hill getting absolutely banjaxed. You said he might have to retire for the Saints.
Oh
Eli's
yeah, they've said it's bad. He'll be
Eli's
35 soon.
Eli Stowers is now going to the draft, and he does what Taysom Hill does. I'm going to watch very closely to see if the Saints go, well, if Taysom Hill's done, maybe we go get Eli Stowers and start training him as the replacement for the future so we can keep our Taysom because he's huge to that system. So that is a link I'm looking at already. So we'll see with that one. Talking about teams with positive futures, and we would not have said this 2 months ago, is there any more team with a positive looking future than Florida? In the SEC right now. They have completely flipped their recruiting class. They're flipping a new recruit every day, pretty much from their rival as well, Florida State. I mean, this was a no contest. They won 31 to 11 in Florida State's own patch. Their defense went mental. 13 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. Florida State had 7 fumbles. 7. They lost 4 of them. And, they had a -3 turnover margin. They have the worst turnover margin in the entire country, I believe. They were 131st before this one. -3 ain't gonna improve that. But Florida, what they've done to end this year, Ryan, they've beaten some legit teams. DJ Lagway looks really good. They've got a lot of great youngsters on this team, and they've just flipped themselves one hell of a class. It's do or die for Napier next year now. Like you've established your culture, you've established a good team, you've got lots of good recruits coming in. You've got to go and put up and shut up now. But Gators fans from 2 months ago will now have a lot of optimism for the future.
Yeah, from he's managed to manage to talk himself off a cliff edge as Napier. He said the right things to the players. He said the right things to the fans, and they have responded in likeness and kindness by going out there, putting in some gutsy performances in the last 3 or 4 games, saving his job, and looking forward to working together next year. It's a young roster. They've also, like I say, now getting some big commitments. They're flipping players. They're getting players from programs that are declining faster than them. I'd say they're going to scoop up those kind of players. So it's never a bad place to be. Like I say, Lagway next year gets the start. Like I say, he's the guy going into spring camp, and he'll be the guy that is going to lead that program forward. And let's see how it looks next year. We'll forget all about what's happened this season once they start next year. Like I say, he will really, yeah, he'll be under some serious scrutiny to start the year. If you can
Yeah.
start it just this year, but if you can start next year like he's finishing this one, then maybe they could surprise a few people next year.
Oh yeah, like 2 months ago when they were playing that game against Miss State, it felt like Dead Man Walking. Like that was where he was at, and now he's flipped around. I'm so happy for him. I'm so glad they've stuck with him because if they do really well next year, it's persistence. Stick with your coach, and then you will get there. In terms of other SEC games, LSU beat Oklahoma 37-17 to round off a disappointing year for them. Missouri beat Arkansas 28-21. Kentucky got absolutely stuffed by Louisville 41-14. Alabama won the Iron Bowl again 28-14, and Auburn looked terrible. But there's one team, Ryan, whose season maybe's not just over yet. They've blown hot, they've blown cold, but they've blown consistently hotter just at the right time, and they've won a huge rivalry game to not only destroy their rivals' hopes of making the playoffs, but maybe, just maybe, sneak themselves in. We're talking about the South Carolina Gamecocks going into Clemson Memorial in Death Valley and beating them 17-14, and they scored 10 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. They had to come from behind and do this one the hard way, and we got iffy passer Lenoris Sellers in this one. He had 164 yards and an interception through the air, but he had 166 yards and two touchdowns on the ground, averaging a measly 10.5 yards per carry. He was backed up by Rocket Sanders, and backed up by a very good defensive performance as well to keep Clemson to just 14 on their own turf. Cade Klubnik went 280 yards and an interception. He had a couple of rushing touchdowns, but this is one of those underrated rivalries, I feel. Maybe not over, in general spheres. In the local area, they know it's absolutely hated, these two are, but South Carolina, Ryan, have just found themselves at the right time here. At the start of the year, they had the one they should have won against LSU and didn't, and you thought, maybe they've thrown their chances away here. But maybe, just maybe, with this win over Clemson, they've given themselves an opportunity to sneak into one of those last couple of spots, because this is a big ranked win, and for Clemson, I don't know what it does for them now. They're 9-3, but they've got a title game coming up, so they can still sneak themselves in. It's not their season over yet, but South Carolina is so intriguing, and you've got to feel happy for them. They've got a quarterback who, if he can't throw it, can win a game by running. And if he doesn't really have a running day, he is becoming a good enough passer to win it through the air. They're one of those dangerous teams you probably wouldn't want to face going in the playoffs as a banana skin.
No, probably someone you'd want to avoid. Especially, like I say, because they can beat you both ways. They've just got some really key, talented individuals, and then guys that are well coached, like say, like Shane Beamer. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people making a lot of cases to put them into the playoffs. A lot of people think they could make it. A lot of people think they are better than the likes of the Rebels, who will also try to make their case. It feels like it's one or the other. It can't be both. A lot saying, like say, Gamecocks there. Clemson, yeah, like I say, they got hot at the end of the year, and then suddenly they like lost all their mojo. Like I say, a big rivalry game, a game where if Clemson, I don't know, I'm not sure what to think of them right now. Like I say, there's a chance both of these teammates are playoffs, but now Clemson's got to do it the hard way. They've got to go in cold and try to beat one of the best teams in the country. And that's going to be really difficult. And yeah,
Yeah.
their Cade reverted back into a shell that we saw 4 or 5 weeks ago that we didn't want to see him. Didn't look good on the day. Looked like, say, a shell of his former self recent weeks. So yeah, it's interesting.
And this is where the controversial calls are going to come, right? So let's just say theoretically, because SMU, we know are in their title game. If SMU lose, let's say, to Clemson going forward, they will be an 11-2 team. Do the committee put in an 11-2 SMU runners up in the ACC, or do they put in a 9-3 South Carolina? I mean,
The
I know
the
what I'd do in
committee,
that
yeah,
situation,
the
but
committee won't pick SMU.
I feel like SMU would be in real danger in that scenario, even though they're 11-2 against a 9-3 team. I think that's the kind of controversial call that might get made,
Yeah.
theoretically.
Oh yeah, I don't think the committee like SMU. I don't think they like having the thought of even having to pick them. That's why SMU has to win. So they don't have a choice and they don't have a say in the matter.
See, all
The
right, we'll
committee,
talk.
it absolutely pained the committee to pick the Cincinnati Bearcats. They're not going to pick SMU out of choice.
All right, just very quickly, other hypothetical. I know we're on this, but if you're going to put Ohio State in right now, two-loss Ohio State, they're fourth in the big, behind Indiana, who are a one-loss team. You've got to put Indiana in now, right? You can't put Ohio State in and not Indiana at this point. That also has to be a thing, right? Or do you reckon they'd do that? It seems inconceivable that they would, but you go put SMU in, you want to put Indiana in. Like, I think someone's really going to get screwed more than Florida State did last year.
Pains me to say it. I don't think Indiana stands a chance. That win over Purdue meant nothing. They basically beat up on, like, say, a
Uh,
bottom five team in Div 1 that's absolutely just hit the reset button, and every man and his dog has jumped ship and they've sat their coach. For me, it just did not help at all, their scenario, because now we saw Ohio State play terrible. You got to ask yourself, why didn't Indiana beat them?
but I will respond to that. Indiana beat Michigan.
For Michigan
You know,
fans,
if you're gonna, yeah, but if you're see, I think a two-loss Ohio State team like that, not even making a championship game, should be struggling to get in the playoffs. One of their losses is to Michigan. Indiana have beaten Michigan, so if the committee's reasoning is Michigan is a quality loss for them, it's got to be a quality win for the Hoosiers. I just
should be, like I
I
say,
don't
it's
think
going to come down to the brand.
you
The
can't
Hoosiers are not a
rank.
brand, and
No,
no, people don't want to see them. The
these
neutral might want to, but yeah, Indiana will probably get screwed. And if SMU lose the title game, I also expect
they'll
them to
get
get
screwed
screwed.
too.
Watch Ole Miss and South Carolina both make it in at the sake of SMU and Indiana.
I'd be fuming. I'd be
I would
absolutely
not be surprised in the
fuming.
slightest. It would cause outrage.
South Carolina, that's fine. You let them in, not Ole Miss. Sorry, but you lose to Kentucky. No, not having that.
Yeah, or
But
Alabama.
ugh, God, it's
Should
gonna.
they be
I just,
there? But there's a good chance they're gonna somehow probably try find a place for them,
I
and
just
it
know
will
it's gonna
come at the
upset
cost of
me.
a Huges or a Mustangs, won't it? We just know it.
Ugh, yeah, it's really
It
gonna
would be
upset me.
very like Alabama though to sneak in when they don't deserve it, run the table and win the whole thing, and that's what the committee will look at
Oh,
the actual chance of winning the championship,
mm, absolutely, they
which
will.
shouldn't be a factor. It shouldn't
No,
go past years,
no,
but
it.
they will.
Yeah, no, you're right. They will. So, all right, we've got one power conference left. So we're into the ACC now. SMU were already guaranteed their route into the ACC title. The first year of coming out of the group of five, and they have won this conference just by record. They'd already won this thing they were in. They finished the season with a 38-6 twonking of California, who, yeah. Their record is they're not as bad as their record is. I mean, like before this one at least, their points differential for the amount of losses they had was tiny. Now it's a little bit bigger, but SMU finished with a bang. And the team that could have joined them were the Miami of Florida Hurricanes. They had to win and they were in at the expense of Clemson. They had to travel to the Syracuse Orange, who've been one of the most frustrating teams in the entirety of college football this year. And I thought it was Cristobal's time. Syracuse win what was a fantastic game of offensive football. I will give them that. These teams were just scoring on one another like it was no man's business. Miami went up 21 to nothing in this, but Syracuse went on to score five of the next six touchdowns as Kyle McCord just absolutely torched them. And in fairness, Cameron Ward did as well. This was fantastic offensive football. Kyle McCord went 380 yards, three touchdowns. Cameron Ward went 350 yards, two touchdowns. Xavier Restrepo had 150 yards and a touchdown as receiver for Miami. Trebor Pena had six receptions for 128 yards and a touchdown for Syracuse. LaQuint Allen had two rushing touchdowns for Syracuse. Damian Martinez had a rushing touchdown for Miami. Mark Fletcher Jr. had two rushing touchdowns for Miami. There were I think at least four 100-yard receivers in this game when offense really went to sleep. But it was Syracuse who were able to make the stops when they needed to, ran out 42 to 38 winners, and Cristobal punted late in this one with about 4 minutes left. I think it was a 4th and 8 or something like that, but I felt like he should have gone for it at the time because Miami's defense could not make a stop to save their lives. Syracuse just ran the ball down, ran timeout, and that was all she wrote. And the Hurricanes, Ryan, are not going to the title game. Clemson are, and Syracuse have the last laugh this season, as you were. They've had a really good season under Fran Brown, their first time out, and they end it with a bang. But for Miami, they were one of the last unbeaten teams in the country at one stage, and they have really just folded as this season's ended. And Cristobal's on a hot seat again all of a sudden.
Yeah, we knew this would come in. Miami defense has been garbage some games this year, and Cam Ward has bailed it out. And it was just another week where Cam Ward couldn't do enough to bail it out. And yeah, Miami probably missed the playoffs. I can probably make a strong case to say you don't put them in because, like I say, they're very flashy and fun to watch, but fundamentally, on defense, their defense has been bad. And yeah, I find it hard to find a place for them. You'd make it, I suppose it's one of those, if Clemson win and SMU or Miami, one of them had to go in. I feel like the committee would pick Miami purely because you've got Cam Ward and people want to see him on the big stage. Yeah, I suppose it's a case in itself, but it could be a straight up, we were only going to put one of them in. It'd be a very difficult choice. And then, yeah, Syracuse, very successful year. Like I say, 9-3. They were in a tight race for a bit, but they dropped away. But realistically, good year. Kyle McCord, stellar year. Like I say, after like I say his untimely departure from the Buckeyes, it had a real big point to prove. I feel like he went out and he proved it, and he made his point. And yeah, he danced his little dances. He won the games. Syracuse, yes, they need to also next year tighten up their defense. Very leaky. You can't try a bit outscoring teams every week. It does get a bit tiresome. But yeah, Orange will be very happy with how their season's gone. Miami will probably be looking back in recent weeks thinking, where did it all go wrong?
Yeah, you look at Syracuse's losses, two of them were one score, 2 points to Stanford, 6 points to Boston College.
Yeah.
And then that
I mean, they're
absolute,
terrible. They're terrible losses on the face
yeah,
of it.
that absolute mauling by Pittsburgh when Kyle McCord threw four pick sixes or whatever. He just had a complete meltdown
Yeah.
for a day. But
He threw five
they're not.
interceptions and a half, I think it was.
I think it's almost positive that you're losing against bad teams, though. You are beating the better teams, really. So, like Syracuse, I would expect to be. I would already label them as a dark horse for next year. Depends. Is
Yeah.
McCord still eligible? I assume he is,
Yeah, he's only
and
played like 4 years.
he's the leading passer in the country. So they keep
Yeah.
McCord.
It would make sense to stay.
Yeah, I would put them as a
But
dark horse in
well,
the
he's a senior,
ACC.
but he's played 4 years. But I imagine,
He's not played though, has he? He's only a starter for 1 year at
well, he
Ohio
only took
State.
20 attempts in 2022, so I feel like he must have
Yeah,
redshirted.
he's a 2 year starter then, basically.
Yeah.
So he's got a
He must
couple
have
of
a
years
redshirt year.
left.
It's
Yeah,
probably in his best interest to return.
yeah, yeah. He's not in draft talk at the moment, so go do it again. Go win the
And then,
ACC
like
with
say Miami, I don't know
Syracuse,
what Miami does next year. Who's the quarterback going to be?
not Cam Ward, and then
Restrepo's gone.
Hoffersberger or whatever he is. The
Yep,
FCS
he's gone.
transfer's gone.
Restrepo's
So
leaving. Their star tight end is leaving. He's going to
yeah,
draft a Rayo.
yeah,
A lot of big names. I imagine Damian Martinez is probably going to declare. It's
probably
not been a good year at all for him, but I feel like
no.
probably just cut your losses and hit the draft.
Yeah, they need to keep like Mark Fletcher's a sophomore. He had a very good freshman year last year. You need to keep guys
Yeah.
like him for your offense.
It
So
feels like, say, yeah, this might have been a huge opportunity might have just passed them by.
yeah, it might have indeed. There were some big rivalry games this week. Virginia Tech beat Virginia 37 to 17. NC State beat UNC. Yes, keep it there, lads, 35 to 30. But then we lost Kevin Conception to the portal, which has made me cry a lot. Boston College beat Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh just were never the same after that SMU loss. They just their season cratered, and that's putting it politely. Duke beat Wake Forest 23-17. And then the other one, a group of five loss. Stanford lost to San Jose State out the Mountain West 34-31. The West Coast teams, they need to do better next year. Both of them, like Cal, have struggled. They're not as badly, but the records are not good. They're both going to have to get a lot better next year if they want to compete in the ACC, right?
Yeah, it's. I just look at the ACC every year and I just think, come on, guys, just one of you, pull your socks up. It's so winnable. Clemson in a rut. Miami, like I said, had a chance. It could all be taken away from the next year. Duke, really good, but they lack the star talent. FSU, blowing this shit up, starting again, going back to drawing board, which they need to do. UNC, Mac Brownless, like next year has got to be the year of the underdog. It's got to be one of these teams. I feel like it's there. Oh wow, some huge news has just dropped.
Oh, go on.
Jackson Arnold is leaving Oklahoma. They've upset him.
Oh, that's not surprising.
After that rushing performance that he
Ooh.
put out a couple of weeks ago, I'd say how they've handled that situation. He might now be the biggest name in the
Ooh.
portal.
Dual threat. Oh, where could he go? Oh, that'd be intriguing. That would. Someone who wants a good dual threat quarterback. He's a freshman this year, right? So he's only going to
Yeah,
be.
you're getting
I'm guessing.
4 good years of him.
Has he played enough to redshirt this year? Has he?
I
I feel
think
like
he
he's.
might have started like 3 games.
Oh, that's close because then you've got his entire eligibility available if he's
Oh,
been able to redshirt this year.
big Arkansas news.
Uh-oh.
They've flipped quarterback Madden Ayamaleava, Nico's
Oh,
brother.
Nico's brother.
He's coming to Arkansas. 4-star QB.
Ooh, we're gonna get the Army-Navy who's facing. Oh yes, I'll take that. I'll love that news there because Taylor Green will have a year left if I'm right. He's played 2 years at Boise State. He's got his year at Arkansas now. Odds are he'll play next year as well while Army-Navy brother redshirts, and then he'll take over. Seems like a natural succession plan. And Arkansas have been good this year, so yeah. Oh, some big news dropping there indeed. In terms of other games, oh, that was it for the ACC. So we're going to move on to the group of five now. And one of the more fascinating ones going into this was the CUSA. So there were four teams that could have gotten to the dance in this one. You had Jacksonville State, Sam Houston, Western Kentucky, and Liberty. And you can't help but feel sorry for Sam Houston. They had a rotten season last year. It was not the best of performances in their debut season in the FBS, but they ended the season with a few wins. They looked pretty good. And they came into this season with an absolute bang. And going into this game, they were one of the teams, they were third, who could have gone on and won this. But they were playing one of the other teams who could have got in, the Liberty Flames. And, everyone assumed that Liberty was going to win this one, but they were at home. They had the home advantage, and they were actually able to win. They beat them 20-18 in a game where they took a pretty commanding 20-9 lead going into the fourth quarter. And try as they might, Liberty tried. They huffed and they puffed. They had 180 yards on the ground, but they only had 83 passing through the air. And Sam Houston beat them. They were able to kneel it out right at the end after Liberty had got a very late touchdown. Massive win for the Bearcats, who end the season 9-3 after only winning 3 games last year. But unfortunately for them, Jacksonville State at Western Kentucky were the other two teams who could have gone. Jacksonville State were already in, I believe, at this point. That Western Kentucky had to win an in to get into this thing, and Western Kentucky won 19 points to 17, which is basically going to be what the title game is. They're going to have a rematch in a week's time, and the Hilltoppers made it by the skin of their teeth. This one was close all the way throughout, but Caden Veldkamp threw for over 300 yards. Jacksonville State felt like they were on a bit of a bye week. They rested a few players before the main event came up, and they'll probably take this one on the chin. They still ran the ball very well. They had 230 yards of rushing on the day, which, usually would do it for you, but weren't able to pass it quite well. Western Kentucky, complete air raid offense, really the exact opposite of them, but two ever so close games right here. But you've got to feel for Sam Houston because Western Kentucky are only in that game because Liberty lost. So basically, Sam Houston did Western Kentucky a favor. And then Western Kentucky just spat in their face by winning and taking their spot off them. And in the light of this, Casey Keeler has now left Sam Houston. So from potentially being on the precipice of a second year championship game, they're now head coachless. They're now done for the year apart from the bowl game. They're not going to a title game. Caden Salter's gone from Liberty. This is a big fallout for both those teams, and we've seen a little bit of what's to come with the title game. Two completely contrasting teams. One runs the ball a ton, one throws the ball a ton, but you've got to feel for Sam Houston a bit here, taking down Liberty and still just falling short.
Yeah. Like I said, if you look at if you were going to hand out an award for biggest turnaround of the year, you could make a strong case to give it to the Bearcats. They looked totally out their depth last year, like it was a mistake coming up. Hitting a very competitive conference, and this year looked like a totally different outfit. Like they just worked really hard to get things right, get the foundations right, go toe to toe with some really big teams. And yeah, it feels like they could be a very quick victim of their own success. Could be gutted on and off the field. Like I say, beat Liberty. And yeah, it's not the Liberty of past. Like I say, we've seen Liberty look shaky this year, but still big name, big branch. And then Jacksonville State, I suppose they've earned the right to sit guys. Like I say, they've done the hard work. Like I say, Rich Rodriguez has got them. He punched their ticket in, so he thought, yeah, let's give some guys some reps. Some of the other guys, the depth we might need them. Western Kentucky, really good. Totally different styles of football. Again, like you say, one goes through the air, one goes through the ground. So that was always going to be a contrast of styles. Very interesting game. Like you say, you want to stay competitive and keep guys warm, motivated, ready to play, but you don't want to also sit and too hard. You don't want them going into a title game cold. So you do have to still give them enough to, like say, keep them engaged. So yeah, I wasn't surprised that one was fairly scrappy. But yeah, the long term future of this conference, it probably I think it looks the
Looks.
best. It looks the best of the G5. You've got credible outfits all around them.
And you've got new faces coming next year as well. It's oh God, who's the one coming up next year? It's Biden's alma mater, isn't it? Oh Christ, what they called again? They're up from May. Is it? Who the
Oh,
hell's coming up next?
the Blue Hens,
Yeah, the Blue Hens are
Delaware.
coming. The Delaware Blue Hens are coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
So we
very
got
attractive. Profit. The conference is just very attractive right now.
yeah, it is. So you've got potential going there. Casey Keeler's left for Temple though. I'm not
That
sure on that
that
one. That
feels a
doesn't
very
feel.
sideways kind of
Yeah,
move.
I don't like doing. I guess if you do well at Temple, given how well they've done recently, that's big for you. But you've got a Bearcats team and you're threatening
Do you
a
feel like it's got to
CUSA
be?
championship.
Is it got to be financially
Money,
motivated?
money, money. I think Temple do throw that, like you say, they throw their money around. They got Kurt Warner's son on staff, so
Yeah,
on
it
staff.
feels like he's going to get a substantial pay rise.
Yeah, it just
But
feels
I just also think as well
sideways.
in college, I just feel like that's never the right move in college.
No, no, and Keeler's
Money
been there
doesn't
for.
mean anything.
And he's been there for years at Sam Houston. So you're just like, it just feels odd that just as you're getting him successful in the CUSA, you move. But hey, fair play to him with his money. Absolutely go for it. And he's done a good job. But I thought he would have gone for a bigger job if he'd have left. That's all I'm saying on that one. In terms of the other results from the CUSA, UTEP beat New Mexico State 42-35. I don't know whether he keeps his job after 1 year there. It's been a big come down year for NMS there. Louisiana Tech shut out Kennesaw State 33-0. Florida International, my pick to get the championship game, ended with a win 35-24, but not a lot to shout about there in that one. In the Mountain West, I mean, this was the one we picked. We picked the title game, and maybe not the hardest in the world, but Boise made very light work of Oregon State, 34 to 18. UNLV 38 to 14 winners over Nevada. Thought that could have been a little bit of a stick there for them. Colorado State won their game against Utah State, but they mucked up last week by not winning. This is the game we wanted, and this could potentially be the best game of championship week. These are two
Two
really,
informed teams. Like
yeah,
I say,
with
one
playmakers
it's a
and
rematch as well, so one of them
yeah,
is upset,
yeah.
and also one of like say, and on the other side you've got a guy that believes he's won the Heisman, or he should do. So yeah, he needs to back it up. He needs to stake the biggest claim he can when it matters. When did they cast the Heisman votes?
It's before the playoffs, I believe. I don't think
Yeah. So this will be
playoffs.
their last chance, won't
Yeah,
it? This is his
yeah.
last chance to take it from Travis, if you believe what people say, that Hunter Muss will win. This is his last audition to take it, I'm guessing.
So my argument here is Heisman is MVP, right? And I did make this argument today. Like Ashton Giante is fantastic. He's got yards for days and that. Boise were unanimous favorites to win the Mountain West this year. So yeah, he's had a great season. He's done a ton. That's fine. The likes of Cam Scatterboo. He's got 2,000 yards and 19 touchdowns this year on a team that was projected to finish last in a power conference and is going to a conference title game. That feels more MVP-ish than being the lead guy on a team that was predicted to dominate a league anyhow. I don't know. It might just be me, but I have a different definition to some of these guys because I'm not sure Travis is the best wide receiver if he's going to his. I know he's the dual threat guy, but I don't know. Do you agree, or do you think that Giante should be over the likes of that?
I suppose it's interpretation, isn't it?
Yeah,
Everyone has a different interpretation of what an MVP is. Like say, a lot will say, how has a kid managed to play on both sides of the ball so consistently, take so many snaps all year,
yeah,
make highlight plays, and he's also projected to, like say, maybe maintain that high level as a pro as well. And then you look at another guy that everyone's trying to say, oh, well, of course he's going to do well. He takes 400 carries a year. Of course he's going to do well. And it's a very valid argument, but you've still got to stop him. He's
yeah.
been absolute dominant at times. Like I say, he's breaking records of all-time greats. He's chasing some of them down. But then people say, well, they didn't win the awards. So why does he get to win the award? And then you've also got oh, well, he plays in the Mountain West and they lost to Oregon. Like I say, the big chance came and he passed it up. So yeah, whoever wins the Heisman, nobody will be happy because it's impossible to please people.
No.
Like I say, they're both locked in first round picks. You can make a strong case for either of them.
And only five Mountain West teams are bowl eligible this year.
Yeah,
Like
the
it
Mountain
goes to
West in
show the level
general
of
has not been
competition.
good, and
No.
that hurts Ashton's case, and it shouldn't
Yeah.
do because the Big 12 has also been an absolute fucking chaotic mess. They've all looked good, but it's also been a disaster.
But I think it's a chaotic mess of good teams. Or teams that can play very well. The Mountain West feels like a chaotic mix of bad teams. Like you've got
This now we're making the playoffs bigger. Does the Heisman vote have to come later in the year?
you feel like maybe it should take into account like
Because
head
yeah, now we can have a group of five team in the playoffs every year, or maybe even two if they have a spectacular year. Do we not have to consider moving the Heisman?
yeah, like for some quarterbacks, like especially if you get a lesser team get into the playoffs and then that guy is really good still against better opposition, you feel he's actually proven that he can.
Yeah.
I feel
Because let's
like
say
it has to.
Boise State. Let's say Boise State takes five, and Iowa State or Arizona State takes 12. Like saying Boise State comes up with a huge playoff game in their
And
first game,
wins.
and he runs for 200 yards and wins the game, but the vote's been cast. It's
Hmm.
meaningless, isn't it? Like I say, it can't. It's too late.
Playing devil's advocate here, if um if UNLV win, do both of them get in? Because UNLV will get in as conference
No,
champion. Will they let a two-loss Boise in?
no, not of that. Not of how the state of the Mountain West looks now.
even with the potential Heisman candidate in there.
No, I don't think the committee, unfortunately, give a shite about Ashton Janner. That's just me thinking they're bias. I just don't see any way at all.
Yeah. Because I think there's a legitimate case you could have both. UNLV have two Power Five scouts, and Boise nearly beat Oregon this year. If you're going to worry about putting a three-loss South Carolina or something in, maybe put in one of these guys who could potentially do it as well. Maybe when it goes to 16 teams, we could see a second group of five team get in if there's
Maybe,
two
yeah.
particular powerhouses in a year. Maybe it's a bit
Yeah.
too
I mean, once you
soon for
expand the
that.
playoffs even further, just have an automatic bid.
Mhm.
Best group of five, as
Yeah,
well as like yeah, like I say, just give them an automatic place. At least like I say, keep it fair.
yeah, exactly. Maybe two best group of five champions or something like that instead. In terms of the other Mountain West ones, say Colorado State beat Utah State, UCLA beat Fresno State, Air Force. Not the best year, but they ended it with 4 wins on the bounce, 31-20 winners over San Diego State. Wyoming beat Washington State. The Washington State season crashed out, and I believe John Mateer is on the move,
I
or his
believe, I
or
believe he is. Yes,
hasn't his offensive coordinator just got a head coach job somewhere? Am
yes.
I right? At a power school? I
Oh,
can't remember who. Is it? Yeah, it's
Cowboys
Oklahoma.
are the Sooners. I think that's
It's the
why.
Sooners.
Yeah, I think that's why Arnold might have hit the portal.
Because I saw an article saying Matthias fit with the Sooners. I'm like, oh my God, has he
Yeah,
gone? But I think it's his OC's just gone there.
yeah. I
Possibly.
think Mattia to Oklahoma makes a lot of sense to battle it out with
That'd be tremendous.
the other quarterback that's still there.
Well, maybe not. You never know. But
Because then you'd have a redshirt sophomore and you'd have another freshman. So it'd be very
yeah.
interesting. Like I said, Mattia, it'd make a lot of sense.
Yeah, Matera Oklahoma could be a great one for sure. A couple of conferences left. So we've got the Sun Belt and a title match we did not see coming. We're going to get Louisiana against Marshall, and why Marshall couldn't have done this last year when I predicted them to get that, I do not know. But Marshall, it was nervy. It took two overtimes, but they put away James Madison 35-33 to make sure of their route into the game. And Louisiana won their rivalry game against Louisiana Monroe 37-23. And what a turnaround for the two head coaches, DeZormo and Charles Huff. At the end of last year, Charles was like, ooh, they finished bottom of their conference last year, or their side of it anyhow. They had a rotten year, just didn't go well. Couldn't get Rasheen Ali healthy. Louisiana had two bowl eligible seasons, but were underachieving given their status. But two coaches who've turned their respective programs around very quickly, and this could potentially be a very fun game as well. We know Marshall love to run the football. Louisiana do as well. They probably got a better passer. I'm not sure. This will be close. Louisiana get the home advantage, but two teams who've deservedly got there this time.
Yeah, two teams, like I say, that have been very good all year. Like I say, they both got tremendous ground games when they need to be. Like I say, they both got passes that have shown flashes all year. They're, I'd say it's quite an even match. Like I say, there's some title games that won't be, but this could be a very competitive game. And like I say, but two teams that you can make a very strong case to win the game. We can't say that about all of them.
No, they both finished 7-1 in conference in a good Sun Belt. I'll just say that. Maybe not as good as last year. They've got one, two, three, four, five, six teams who didn't make bowl eligibility this year. They only had two last year. So, maybe it's regressed a bit, but they've all taken a lot of wins off one another. But Louisiana, by vote of having the better record, they finished 10-2 on the year, so they get home advantage over Marshall, who finished 9-3. But Marshall on a 6-game win streak. So that is going to be really fun indeed. Texas State finished off with a win over South Alabama, but considering they were overwhelming favorites to win the West, they finished second, but still maybe a bit disappointing for them. Old Dominion beat Arkansas State 40-32. Coastal Cal beat
That
Georgia
fizzled out,
State
didn't it? The Red Wolves at the end of the year.
48-27. Yeah, they
That
finished. There was so Louisiana was 7-1. There was a three-way tie at 5-3 behind them, which was Texas State, Arkansas State, and South Alabama. So 7-5 for the Red Wolves. Not bad.
pretty
They
good to
won
see how
three last
bad
year.
recent years have been, though.
Yeah, they've done really well in that case. ODU, Old Dominion. Weirdly enough, they're not bowl eligible this year. They went 5-7, but they went 4-4 in conference. They had a really rough patch in the middle of the year, but still competitive, and they finished fourth in the East, so they're not dead just yet. Um, App State 3-5, Coastal Cal 3-5. App State, he's gone. That wasn't surprising in the slightest. Like
Nope.
they
That's what I was on about. Like, say, won it 41-20 is a
Yeah, Sean
record, but
Clark, best roster in the Sun Belt, and they were bad this year. That drop off was, we said if they were going to drop back again, it'd be the end of him, and they did. They're not even bowl eligible.
I've seen some of their big players as well have hit the
Yeah,
portal.
I want to see if Aguiar goes because he's got two. I think he's still got eligibility left. Aguiar could be one you could see make a sneaky move to the Big Ten or something. It's a dual threat. Who knows? After what Curtis Rourke and the likes have done this year, and then we finish off with the MAC, and we've got a rivalry game going in for this one, Ryan. It's going to be Ohio versus Miami of Ohio, and we only got here because Miami of Ohio convincingly took down Bowling Green, who were picks of ours. Actually, I look back, this was both our predictions for the title game. So technically, we did all right here. It came down to the last week. But Miami of Ohio stomped them 28-12. Ohio beat Ball State 42-21. I mean, this Ohio team doesn't feel like we've talked about them much in recent years, but the Bobcats have had a very good season, and they're going into this in all sorts of form at the minute. They finish 9-3 on the year with their dual threat Parker Navarro there, and this sets up a very interesting championship game there. But the Red Hawks are back as well. They've been there, they've done that, they've got the chance to hang on. Did they win it last year? Or did Toledo win it? Toledo won it
No,
last year, didn't they?
Toledo.
It's the
I think
chance.
Toledo won two in a row, didn't they?
Yeah, but the Red Hawks are back. Maybe not expectedly, but big rivalry game to look forward to.
Yeah. It's a shame that the Falcons kind of fell at the final hurdle. Connor Berzalek, I'm pretty sure he's done. I'm pretty sure this was the last crumb of eligibility he had left. But like I say, great year for Bowling Green. Hoping they can find a new successor. But yeah, it's hard to make a case to say that the best two teams aren't are in the championship game. And yes, it should be very interesting. Like I say, because you've also got a title game. You've also got, yeah, some strong local bragging rights. I imagine this one could be a little bit tense, to
To
put it
to
kindly.
say it lightly. Yeah, and obviously gets played at Ford Field, so it's going to be in front of potentially a big, raucous crowd. So it's the Battle of the Bricks, I believe this one is called, and it's because they've got red brick roads on each campuses, but it's like the rivalry name for all the sports with one another. But we've got the Battle for the Bricks at Ford Field this week, and in a town full of grit. That just feels like the right rivalry. In the city of grit, it's the Battle of Bricks. So that's going to be interesting there. In terms of the other games, I mean, Toledo finished awfully. They lost to Akron in overtime. Great win for Akron to finish the year, 21-14. Buffalo beat Kent State. Poor Kent State, 0-12, the only winless team of the year, gave up 530 points in their 12 games, scored 160. That's just a very rotten year there, right? That's one you forget about, and that's going to get blown up and started from the very beginning again.
Yeah, the Golden Flashes have been a prominent figure in that conference in recent years. Or like the last 15 years, they've always been thereabouts. They've had some really good players as well. Like I said, they produced some top talent. Everything that could go wrong this year went wrong. And whenever I watched them all, like if I watched highlights, they looked terrible. They looked lost. They looked a team devoid of any confidence. But obviously, losing that does that. But There was no one there that looked like they could take the game by the scruff of the neck. Yes, blow it up. I can't see any way any of the coaching staff really survive.
No, it's going to be very tough for them indeed, and they'll be glad that the season is done. They certainly ain't going bowling. So that is everything in terms of how the last week of the season went and the rankings done there. So we've got to wait till next week for the playoffs, until the committee makes its decisions. And, we'll go over the season as a whole in an episode coming up. We'll look back at, we'll deep dive the conferences, what's gone on, the stat leaders, the stuff like that. We'll do all that there. So we're going to finish this off and we're going to take a look ahead at championship week. And I'm going to have to do this by hand because I've not actually done the pick watch for this week yet. Gonna need to sort that one out, but we need to have a look at these championship games and see what is going to go on with them. And I need to get the betting spreads up for them so I can see where we're at. We Is there anything else you want to mention quickly about week 14 before we move on? It certainly lived up to its name, rivalry week, that's for sure.
Yeah. Uh, I think I saw like there was 10 fights that included someone celebrating. I saw the Sun Devils put the pitchfork
That
into the
was
field,
funny.
like something like that. Yeah. 10 scuffles that involved a flag or some sort of celebration in the center field.
Yeah, it
But
was.
only one fine I saw.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. I think the only one that didn't. Oh God, I think the old Miss one didn't end in one, but yeah, it was fun. Anyhow, let's move it on, and we're gonna go into the championship games, and we're gonna predict these, and I'm also gonna quickly go through what our predictions were just to see how close we were going to get to this one. So we need to make our predictions. Let me write them down here so I can fill in the form later. But Ryan, the first one in championship game we have, when I can get back on here, the Conference USA championship game. So we've got Western Kentucky at Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State favored by 4 in this, despite just losing to Western Kentucky. Now, as we've already mentioned, two completely contrasting styles of teams. Jacksonville State love to run the ball under Rich Rodriguez. Western Kentucky love to throw the ball. And we've seen the passing style come out, but this is the one that matters in terms of what we predicted at the start of the year. I predicted this game was going to be Liberty versus Florida International, so I failed miserably. You, however, predicted Liberty versus Jacksonville State, although you had Jacksonville State losing to Liberty, so you got half of it right. You got the Rich Rodriguez train in there, but
Do I get a pick watch point
you
or half a point?
get that's for us. That's just our preseason predictions. You get a point over me for that one. But I don't know what you're thinking. We've seen one already. It was very close, but when it matters, are we going Western Kentucky or Jacksonville State to win the CUSA?
I feel like the run defense combination wins championships. It controls time of possession. I'm going to take Jacksonville State and Rich Rodriguez.
I'm going to take Jacksonville State as well. I think when it matters, the run game will come through. But if Western Kentucky can get some takeaways,
If
maybe
they
that
get a big
changes.
lead, then they're in
Yeah.
trouble.
Yeah. Jacksonville State can't play from behind. So we will see with that one. We've got the Mountain West up next, and there's no introductions needed for this one at all. UNLV at Boise State. We both predicted this one. Now, maybe it was one of the easier ones to predict, but still got to make the predictions. Boise State are favored by 3.5. The line did open at 4.5, and as you know, the run goes through Ashton Giante is on his home field. He's probably going to want to break all sorts of records in this one. But UNLV have had two FCS quarterbacks this year. They've had to change their quarterback halfway through the season. Hodge Malik Williams is in really good form right now. Ricky White is an excellent wide receiver. The defense can get takeaways. Brennan Marion and the Go-Go can put down a lot of points on people, and they want to get revenge for last year, for the game last year they lost, and they've lost this year, so that's twice in a row. So can it be third time's a charm for UNLV, or is Gianti and Boise just gonna motor home this one?
No, I call the upset. I go the Rebels. Like I said, I think
Mm.
they've looked better since Slook has left. They look more balanced on offense. And in recent weeks, like I said, there was like the first half against San Jose State, not impressed with Boise, sloppy, and I just look at Maddox Madsen and I just think if someone slows down Ashton Johnny, can he win a game? No, I don't think he's talented enough to do it on his own. If someone just clips the wings of Ashton, I think the Broncos are in trouble.
I've got UNLV as well. I love the style of football they play. I love that scheme, and I want to see it pay off for them. So yeah, we've both got the Rebels upset, but one thing, it's going to be one hell of a
It
game.
should be a good game.
Yeah, I
It's a
reckon it's going
clash
to be
of
like an
styles again as well. Rebels want to throw.
yeah. Well, Rebels run the go-go. Boise just run the traditional in we're going to run it up your ass type offense, and there's nothing you can do to stop us. So could be an 80, 90 point thriller that we will see with that one. So we've both got that. Next, we've got the American. And Brent is still in the chat with us, I believe, Brent, if you're still there, because you're in a snowstorm at the minute. So stay safe. Hope you're well. The American Athletic Championship and number 17 ranked Tulane at the Army Black Knights. Army 10-1 on the year, the one sole loss to Notre Dame. Tulane, by their standards, have had a rough year, 9-3. They finished the season off with a loss to Memphis. Tulane, on the road, are 3.5 point favorites over Army, which kind of feels a little bit disrespectful to the Black Knights there. But let me just check in terms of our predictions for this at the start of the year. For the American Ryan, you had Memphis versus South Florida, so neither of those were in, and you had Memphis winning it. I had UTSA versus Tulane, but I had UTSA winning it, but I got one of them. So I've got my half point back on you there, but I didn't predict them to win it. But I mean, what can we say? Army have had a terrific year. It's their first year in the American. Jeff Monken has done a hell of a good job re redefining that triple option offense. They've gone back to roots, but added a twist to it as well. Tulane have not had the best of years, but it's still a high-powered offense. It's a team who knows how to win the American. They've done it in recent years. They are still a very strong roster. And again, we talk about clash of styles all the time. This is definitely a style clash. Can Army take one for the service teams? Because against American teams in the American, they've absolutely demolished everything they've come up against. It's just Notre Dame, who are a power school, who are much bigger than they are. We got a Black Knights upset, yeah. Black Knights upset, or you're going Tulane to win another American.
See, for me, this is not a clash of styles because Tulane have one of the best running backs in the country in
Mm,
Mackay Robinson.
yeah.
They're a running team at heart, really, and Mensa is also a good dual threat quarterback. I think Tulane want to run the ball just as much as Army, if not more. And that balance, I lean towards the Green Wave because of that balance. They can run the ball, but Mensa is also able to throw it. I just think it gives them an element. And like you say, they've played in these games before. They know what it
Mm.
takes to win.
And our Army gonna have their eye on the Navy game. That's the one. That's the one that's coming up. But you know what? Army have done enough to convince me this year that they mean business and that they can go toe to toe, and they've put some very good teams away this year. So I'm actually going to go with the Army upset the first time we're going to split this one, but I'm looking
I
forward to
don't
it.
think it's much of an
Please.
upset, to be honest, though.
No, I don't either, because they are technically the you
They're
can tell the
ranked, so
bias
technically,
against
yeah.
them. Tulane are ranked, Army aren't, which is it feels disrespectful being as Army had the better record, but here ho, there we go. to gear. So the next one I've got to just doing it in order of they've done here. We've got the first of our power ones. We've got the Big 12s, and we've got Iowa State at Arizona State, 18 against 16. Arizona State favored by 2.5. You are the Sun Devil. And I know I have backed the Sun Devils absolutely all year without aplomb. I have been unapologetically a Sun Devil when it comes to the picks, but I am at heart a Vectical. And I do believe that Iowa State are going to win this. They have a mental toughness under Matt Campbell where they're not going to break, but they're going to have to keep Cam quiet. And Arizona State are not out of this without Tyson. They got a good quarterback. They got a good running back, a defense which is finally finding its feet. Where are you going, Rye? Are you gonna let the home you're gonna let the bias creep in here, or do you think the loss of Tyson's a little too much for them?
Yeah, going Cyclones. I just don't think they can get by with Xavier Guillory and Manea, the tight end. I just think ultimately Cyclones will stack the box. Freuler, the big boys, the Cyclones linebackers are so good. They will slow Cam down. And when, like I said, I think Sam's the better quarterback because he's more of a dual threat. But the fact is, I think the lack of weapons, like I said, Higgins and Norwell, they're going to be a big mismatch because of size and strength against the ASU. Yeah, I hate to be, I think the Iowa Cyclones are going to win,
So he's
and
picked the
that pains me.
Cyclones, but yeah, you
I
had to get
picked
the
if there's Tyson, I pick Sun Devils, no doubt.
you had to get the shot in there at Rocco
I
as
just think it's
well.
a huge. I just think it's a massive loss that's going to be hard to overcome.
Rocco's better than Sam Levitt. Me gonna be petulant. We've got the MAC Championship up next at Ford Field. Oh, by the way, the Big 12 title game is AT&T. So hopefully
Arlington in it, yeah.
you've got your sun visors down because you're going to be playing into the sun. Um, so we got Ohio at Miami of Ohio. It's not, it's at Ford Field. So, you get there. Miami of Ohio favored by 2.5, despite finishing with the worst record of the two teams. Maybe with their recent championship experience, that is potentially why. But the Bobcats and their quarterback Parker Navarro, who is very good, coming up against the really experienced Miami of Ohio team. Which one do you have winning? Because we both predicted Miami of Ohio to win the MAC this year. That was our title games were both Miami of Ohio over Bowling Green. So we got one of the teams right. You sticking with your winner or are you changing your mind?
Very evenly matched. This is a difficult one. There's very little between these two sides. They've both won five in a row, so you can't even use form.
No. Two informed teams playing good
It's
football,
indoors at a neutral venue, so there is no deciding outside factors.
no discernible advantage.
Give me the Bobcats upset.
Ooh, all right. I'm gonna stick with my preseason prediction that the Red Hawks are gonna win it. So we are divided on that one. The SEC championship we've got up next. Georgia at Texas, but this is taking place at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, so technically it's a home game for Georgia because they don't play that far away and they recruit in those grounds. It's technically an away game, this feels like, for Texas. But Georgia have just not looked like the Georgia of old this year. Texas have been a very good team for the most part. Quinn's healthy. The team looks really good. They've just stomped their nearest rival. Texas are favored by 2.5, so it's very close. It's on neutral ground. Are the Longhorns going to win the SEC in their first year in the conference, right? Or is Georgia's experience in these situations going to trump that?
I mean, everything's telling me not to pick the Bulldogs because of how they've shaky they've looked and their lack of zero run game. But I'm still gonna pick Georgia. It's basically a home game. The Bulldogs crowd, huge. This Kirby Smart just lives for the big stage.
See, for me, Texas won the Big 12 last year. They went to the playoffs. I think they're getting used to these big game situations, and they've dominated teams this year. They've looked really good. I'm gonna pick Texas to win this, and I'm probably gonna regret it, but hey ho, that's the way that one goes. Where are we at next? We got the Sun Belt next. Marshall at Louisiana. And it is at Raging Cajun Stadium. So Marshall are on the road. But Rye, generally, teams who run the ball better are a bit better on the road because, less opportunities to put it in the air. You've got to assert your dominance in the game, but the 6 wins in a row. Louisiana had a little bit of a hiccup at the end of the year. But on paper, you would say they are the favourites. They're favoured by 4.5 at home. Not big line considering it's a home performance, but potentially a low-key really good game. Is it going to be DeSormo or is it going to be Huff?
Uh, take Marshall.
See, I am as well. I bet Marshall were going to get there last year. This is them. This is me sticking with them 12 months later. I do really like the look of this team and how it's put together. And I know Louisiana are good, and I know they're at home, but if they can run the ball well, Marshall, they will take the crowd right out of this game. And I think that I think that they're able to do this. So we've both got a Marshall sweep there, which is interesting. We've got two more to do. We've got the Big Ten Championship up next, right? Penn State at Oregon, although that is at neutral field. It is in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Field. So
Why?
because it always is held there.
Oh.
Most of the power conferences do it at a neutral venue.
That just seems a weird neutral venue. It just seems very.
Yeah, but
Ugh.
it's played at Lucas Oil. I don't know if that, benefits anyone. It's indoors. But Penn State to Oregon. Oregon have just defeated everybody in their path all season. The only undefeated team in the country out of all 133 FBS teams, they're the only one not to lose. Scares have been infrequent. Wisconsin was one, Ohio State was another, but for the most part, they've been dominant. Penn State, they've just gone right under the radar this year, especially since the Ohio State game. But on paper, they have a very good roster, which is why I picked them to win it this year. So, and they're in form now, and they're at the dance, and you only need to have one good game to win the dance. So, are Oregon gonna falter at the last and maybe go back to being a little bit fraudulent, or is Dan Lanning going to win the Big Ten in his first season there? Or is James Franklin finally going to break the glass ceiling after 8 odd years at Penn State?
I mean, I wish I thought differently, but Penn State, they just don't have the bollocks. I just think they don't have the nuts on them to do it. Give me Oregon. Might not be pretty, but I think they'll find a way to get over the line. Just don't
So,
trust the Nittany Lions.
so I've forgotten. I've not been doing our predictions with this, but in terms of the Big Ten, where were we? Da, 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 da. You had Michigan versus Ohio State. I had Michigan versus Penn State. And I had Penn State winning the whole thing. So you know what? I'm going to double down on it. I've got evidence from beginning of the season that Penn State were going to win this thing. Big upset in this one. I mean, it would classify as one. Oregon are 3.5 point favorites on neutral ground. So yeah, we will see with that one. But I've got Penn State winning. I think they have got the playmakers. I think they're due one. And, this will be the time. It's not against Michigan. It's not against Ohio State. This will be the time that they can do that there. The Sun Belt, by the way, I forgot to check who we picked to win that. You had App State versus Texas State. I had James Madison versus Texas State. So we both failed miserably on that one. And then the last one we've got here, we've got the ACC championship game. Clemson at SMU. SMU favored by 2.5 points. And of course, this one takes place at Bank of America Stadium in Carolina. So, still out there on the East Coast. Don't think it really gives an advantage to either team. To say SMU, what a season it's been for them. 11-1. just the one loss on the season. Clemson 9-3 kind of feels very lucky that they snuck their way in there, but Clemson are a storied team who have won a lot over the years. This is going to be the ultimate pressure keg for SMU. They came in, the new guys, you can win, you can defy expectations, but then you get so far along the Cinderella story before the pressure starts becoming real. And they're going to be taking an ACC championship game, a power championship game to potentially get a bye in the playoffs and get close to the natty. And they're doing it against the franchise that's storied like Clemson, are the nerves going to be a little too much for the Mustangs, or are they just going to carry on saying, the hell with it, we're just going to prove everybody wrong and we're going to go win this whole thing?
Uh, Head says Clemson, heart says SMU.
I find in this business that following your heart gets your losses. As much as I hate it, that's why I'm always bottom of the pick watch because I use my heart and not my head. Go on, Ryan.
I
You know
don't
you
trust.
want to. You know you want to. You've been one of Clemson's biggest
I
critics.
don't trust Cade Club Nick.
Go on. Say
Go on,
those three little letters.
I'll take SMU.
There we go. He's got it. You know what? I think they've proven beyond doubt that they're more than just a phenomenon this year. Like that beatdown of Pittsburgh did it, but ever since, they've just looked unfazed. The pressure's not gotten to them. They got one of the hottest quarterbacks in the country. They got one of the hottest teams in the country. A defensive line that's just absolutely brutal. And if that can stop Phil Maffer from running the ball, I think they'll just tee off on Cade Klubnik and I don't think they'll care. I think everyone will write them off, and they'll be like, okay, do with that at your own peril. So I'm going SMU as well. We're going to have SMU to win the ACC title game, and in terms of, and Brent's gone with us as well. So SMU, well done, Brent. We'll all go down together on this one. In terms of who we picked to be in this, we both picked Florida State, is what I can remember, which on the high of it was not a very good thing to do at all. You picked Florida versus NC State. I picked Miami, Florida against Florida State. So yeah, no points for us either in that one. I was so close. So that is everything, and those are all the games this week. We don't have a big slate to go over. It's just the 8 championship games, and after this, we've got the Army-Navy game, and we got the playoffs, and we've got bowl season. So I mean, which ones? So while I just message Matthew and let him know we're winding this down, which games are you most looking forward to watching in Championship Week? Where do you reckon the real barnstormers are going to be?
Uh, Probably look to the Mountain West. I just feel like it's probably got some more explosive players. I can see the Big 12 failing to deliver. I can actually see it being a damp squib. I can see it cancelling each other out.
Okay.
If I'm looking, where's the biggest one-sided score going to be? Uh,
Ooh. Oregon?
ACC. If one of those sides doesn't turn up or get stage fright, I reckon the other side tees off on them.
It's close. I think these are a set of tremendous. I mean, it sounds silly, but how much better is the Big Ten now that the conferences are gone? Like we have not looked forward to that championship game in forever because it's just been so one-sided. I do feel it will be much more competitive than it's been in recent years. Like this,
Yeah, I was sick of Michigan and Ohio State.
I look at all of these. UNLV and Boise could be great. Tulane versus Army could be great. Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State, big clash of styles. Penn
I can
State,
see the
Oregon could
SEC
be good.
championship being rubbish.
Yeah, absolutely. Like kind of like a 20-16 game,
Yeah, I
something
can
like
see
that,
two
something
teams that
crazy.
just shut each other down.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be absolutely tremendous. Brent goes, I might watch some of the Army-Navy game. Good kidding, Brent. You're going to watch the whole thing, and you know you are. You're going to be going to be rooting for Army there. If you win this weekend, Brent, I will root for Army against Navy. You have my word on that. I will flip my script and I will back you. But you've got to beat Tulane first. If you don't, then it's go Navy all the way. If anyone's got any other questions they quickly want to ask us before we get out of here, just let us know because we're just winding this one down. In terms of shows coming up, so the main podcast, um, so that's going to be back tomorrow. Matt and Ash will be doing the live commentary for the Green Bay Packers game. So join the guys there if you want to use the alternative commentary instead of having some of the absolute stinkers that usually go out. So yeah, join those there, and then the review show will be at some point. We're working out when that's going to be. And then, of course, me and Ryan are going to be back next week on the College Pod. We are going to review Championship Week. And then we'll probably do a review of the regular season as well, throw some bits in there. And then, of course, we'll be talking about the playoffs because by this time next week, we should know what the brackets are going to be and we can all complain about the incorrect decisions that the committee has made. And of course, we'll be going into bowl season as well. And then we'll be going into draft season. So if there's anything draft wise you want to ask us, let us know. And we will start on that as well because we've got a lot of bits coming up there. Don't think there's really anything else. Brett goes, I'm watching the Western Kentucky game. Yeah, be fun. Watch Easton Messer. He's such a great wide receiver. He's the next Malachi Corley. Had a great game against Jacksonville State the week just gone, so keep an eye on him again. No, I think that's really about it. I know Matt's here now, so thank you to everyone who's joined. Appreciate you all as always. And again, if there's anything you want us to do college football wise, just let us know and we shall do that for you. Just remains for me to thank Ryan and thank Hank. We've seen Hank this evening as well. Hopefully you enjoyed that, Grandizer. We shall see you next week. Go on, Pride.
Recording stopped.